We are computer. We are coming to you from PS 15 in Red Hook. I would like to ask everyone here that's in person, please sign the attendance sheet in the back of the room. We currently have 24 people on the Zoom call. Thank you for all who are here via Zoom. And before we call the roll, I would like to invite the interpreters to introduce themselves in their languages. Can we please start with the Mandarin interpreters?
欢迎大家来到这个讲座。然后呢，如果你需要国语的翻译的话，请拨打电话347-966-4114，然后密码是407-683-78，然后再来一次，密码是407-683-78，然后井号，谢谢。Mandarin announcement is finished.
Thank you so much. Oh.
You have muted yourself.
Okay, hold on. I fixed it. You might have to say that again. Nancy.
I think he's.
Oh, he's here. He heard it. Oh my God.
And now please have the Bangla interpreter.
সন্ধ্যা সবাইকে। আপনারা যারা আজকে এই পুরো অনুষ্ঠানটা বাংলাতে শুনতে চান তারা দয়া করে এই নাম্বারে কল করুন 347-966-4114। আমি নাম্বারটি আবারও বলছি 347-966-4114। তারপরে আইডি নাম্বারটা চাপুন। নাম্বারটা হচ্ছে 117-433-433-11। তারপর হ্যাশট্যাগ চাপুন। আমি আবারও বলছি আইডি নাম্বারটা 117-433-11। তারপর হ্যাশট্যাগ চাপুন, নাম্বার সাইন চাপুন। ধন্যবাদ। Thank you.
Thank you so much. And now I'll turn it to Antonia to call the roll.
Okay, Nancy Randall.
Present.
Antonia Ferraro, yes, I'm here. Vanessa Gonzalez Uoka. She might be coming later. Nancy Cruz has written in that she will not be here. Donalda Chumney.
Here.
Leslie King.
Here.
Hans Arietta.
Here.
Lauren Barkin has sent us a message that she's at a work event. And Mamoon Rashid. Maybe he'll come later. Danley Vidal.
Here.
Jonathan Davis.
Here.
Okay, and Yoon Lee. Oh, and we just, Vanessa Uoka has just arrived, so she is here. Let's see if we have quorum. We do in fact have quorum, so. There you go, and I'll pass it back to you.
Actually, please continue
I
with
get to
the introduction
continue.
to CEC 15.
Okay, everybody, please remember to sign in at the desk, or if you are attending remotely, I'm going to put a link in the chat for you to please sign in. Your attendance is very important to us. So thank you all for coming to the District 15 Community Education Council meeting tonight. We appreciate your time and we're glad you could join us. For those of you who are new to CEC meetings, there are 32 CECs throughout the city plus 4 citywide councils. Each CEC represents a community school district and each is made up of 12 volunteer members, 10 of whom are elected by parents in the district, and the remaining members are appointed by the Brooklyn Borough President. We are also able to have 2 high school student members, though we do not have those members on this council yet. CEC 15 is a state mandated public body responsible for ensuring that public school parents and the public have input in educational decisions that are made at the school district level. Our council reviews education policies and advocates for high quality education that benefit all of our District 15 public elementary and middle school students. CEC 15 serves 35 elementary and middle schools and 1 high school under the oversight of our superintendent. CEC members serve in an advisory role on education matters to the district superintendent, the chancellor of the Department of Education, and to city and state elected officials. We approve district school zoning lines submitted by the Department of Education. We evaluate our district superintendent. We review the district's educational programs, and we support school leadership teams. We also submit recommendations for the School Construction Authority's annual capital plan. And as of recent amendments to the law, CECs advise on the selection of parent coordinators. We actively seek input and feedback from the public, and we encourage you to visit our website, cecd15.org, take a look at our Facebook page and connect with us on Twitter. Write to us about any issues you may want to learn about. Each school has a CEC liaison. All of our names and contact info are available on the website. So please just be sure to sign the attendance sheet, either remotely or in person. And I'm now going to turn it over to Leslie, our parliamentarian, for the parliamentarian rules and regulations.
We need to speak louder for everybody to hear.
Okay.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Good evening. Tonight's calendar meeting is in person and will include a public comment period, which will take place both remote and in person comments to gather additional feedback from our families and school community members. You may leave your camera on, or for your own privacy, if you prefer, you may use audio only during the comment period and throughout the meeting. Rules of engagement. When you comment, please respect the privacy of others. Please do not include names of children or staff. Guests who make inappropriate comments will be removed from the meeting. During the public comment period, those attending virtually may raise their hand to comment or indicate in the chat that they would like to speak. Those called upon will be unmuted. If you are attending in person, you must sign the guest attendance sheet and indicate whether you would like to comment. Speakers will be called on one at a time and will be allowed 1 minute each for comment. We will hear as many speakers as time allows. It is possible that not every comment question will be given time. So the best way to get your questions and answered, So the best way to get your questions answered is always to write to the CEC at cec15@schools.nyc.gov. CEC members will also be given a comment period. Members will be called upon and are each permitted 1 2-minute comment and question. If members do not have a comment, they may cede their time to the chair.
Thank you so much, Leslie. Oh, I guess I need to pass this back. Thank you. As I said earlier, we are at PS 15, and I was just about to invite Principal Kavanaugh to come. So we will wait until she returns to have her come and introduce herself and introduce the school. But I will move forward with information. So the first thing that I want to mention is there are auditions tomorrow night for the musical theater production that's happening in District 15, and I'm going to drop these flyers in the chat. Actually, would you be able to do it? I don't know if I'm.
Don't know.
It's in the script. I don't know if. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it effectively. So if your child is in 3rd through 12th grade, they can audition, and the information is in the flyers. Also, trying to drop a flyer in the chat of a GED opportunity. There are adult GED classes that will be starting soon at PS 24, open to anyone in that community. And you can use the QR code in the flyer for more information. On Saturday, October 28th, this coming Saturday, there is the PTA Fun Run. Councilmember Hanif's office is co-hosting it for the 15th annual Fun Run. It's a 3.3-mile walk, scoot, run around Prospect Park that starts at LaFrac Center and is open to all community members and schools in Brooklyn. The funds raised from participation fees and donations go to all participating Title I schools, including schools that had Title I status in the previous 3 years, and funds are distributed based on participation. There is a sign up and donation link that we can also drop in the chat. So it's really fun, and if anybody is able to go, definitely participate. We want to share the response that we received from the DOE regarding the resolution in support of changing the name of MS 447. If anybody who attended our meeting at the end of August will remember that MS 447 asked for a name change, and this is the response from the DOE. This response is an acknowledgement of receipt of resolution regarding the renaming of MS 447. Thank you for your resolution advising us of your support for the name change. We are following up with the superintendent and Office of Space Management to ensure that the steps required by Chancellor's Regulation A860 are being followed. Sincerely, Deputy Chancellor Kenita Lloyd, Family and Community Engagement and External Affairs. So hopefully everything will work out so that their name change does go through, and we will keep you updated to make sure that that happens. Also want to share with you the next PEP meeting will be November 29th, which is one day after our next calendar meeting. The PEP, for anybody that doesn't know, is the Panel for Educational Policy, and they will be voting on various contracts as they do at every meeting. Sometimes also they vote on school locations, co-locations, school building utilization. It's very important to let your voice be known, let your opinion be known about how things are being utilized and what contracts are being voted upon. So please mark your calendars for November 29th in Long Island City. To our council members, I want to bring up a reminder for reimbursement requests. If you don't put it in today, that's not a big deal. Just make sure that at our next business meeting, you bring your reimbursement requests. And also at our next business meeting, I'm going to add to the agenda a discussion about absences. I think it's time for us to potentially change the leniency that we've had with absences, especially since it's wonderful that we have people that are coming to our meetings, that are investing in it, and they're expecting us to be investing our time here as well. And finally, I want to turn it over to Leslie and Hans, who attended the mayor's town hall on October 12th, and they're both, actually, I don't even want to say that publicly. So anyway, so they attended the mayor's town hall on October 12th, and so I'll turn it over. Hans, can I turn it over to you? And then I'll turn it over to Leslie.
Hello, everyone. Hope everybody have a great, wonderful day. We was with Mayor Adams in the meeting. It was very, very, very interesting to see, like how the city works. It's like incredible, like all the team he got is incredible, like all the amazing people, like how they resolve problems, how they, find the solutions. And, like it was very interesting to be there, see all the whole community. and see all the questions they make, you know, like practically everybody's looking for the same solution, you know, just like, you know, make happy the kids, make happy the community, make safe the areas. So, you know, he proposed a lot of ideas. He, you know, also increased, you know, like the quality of life in New York City. We don't want to lose that quality of life in New York City, you know, so they trying to do the best they can. And yeah, I was very excited, you know, and my friend was there too, and so, you know, I don't know, you want to say something about it too?
Thank you. So it was so interesting to go to I'd never been to a town hall meeting with the mayor, with any of our mayors before. And so I found it very encouraging to be in a space with community members where it was fairly informal, asking questions. And I felt like there were some very interesting, well thought out questions that were challenging for our mayor and for the panel of people that he brought with him. And I felt like his questions led to more questions, and he opened up to having more dialogue with people in the community. So it was a very encouraging night, and I hope that it's something that happens more often. And if you have any questions about it, you can ask me later.
All right. Can you hear me? Yep. Okay. I was about to turn it to Principal Kavanaugh, but I see that she just left again. Is she back? Okay, before we turn it over. Okay, wonderful. So as I said, we're at PS 15 in Red Hook, and I just want to make sure that Principal Kavanaugh has an opportunity to introduce herself and the school before we move on. So Principal Kavanaugh, could you they will see you in the Zoom if you see.
They don't need to see this. End of the day, principal look.
Here? Okay.
Hi, Zoom people. Hi. Hello, everybody. Welcome to PS 15. I'm Julie. I'm lucky to be the principal of this awesome place. Don't know what else to say. This year is certainly a challenge, but we're meeting it gracefully with the support of our incredible District 15 superintendent team and CEC. So thank you so much. Thanks for making the trip to Red Hook and visiting us. I know we're not easy to get to. And yeah, thank you and welcome.
Oh, and we got swag, which was very exciting. So thank you so much, Principal Kavanaugh. Okay, moving right along, we have Senator Gonardis here. We're very grateful that you can be here, and please, you should sit at this one. Okay, this would be great. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
No, thank you for having us. And sorry, my little 3-year-old is a little having fun. Yeah, cute. Yeah, that's what we'll say. It was cute. Good evening, everyone. I'm State Senator Andrew Gonardis. Some of you I've had the chance to meet before. Some of you I haven't. So it's great to meet you. I represent Bay Ridge to Dumbo in the State Senate. I've been in the State Senate for the last 5 years, but this district changed, as some of you know, last year. And so my old district used to be from Bay Ridge to Marine Park. Now I represent Bay Ridge to Dumbo, including a very healthy chunk of District 15, in Red Hook, Carroll Gardens, Cobble Hill, Park Slope, Sunset Park, Brooklyn Heights, etc. I was born and raised in Bay Ridge, so I'm a product of District 20 schools, and my mom was an educator in the public school system for almost 30 years. We came here tonight because we wanted to talk about, is Joanne, is someone on with us too? Or was she?
She's supposed to be here in
Okay.
person.
Okay, so we wanted to come and talk about a bill that Assemblymember Joanne Simon and I have introduced and have been working on for the last couple of months. And that is around changing how New York State's laws around lockdown drills. And so we've been partnering on this effort. We actually succeeded in passing a bill through the State Senate last year, but we did not get it through the State Assembly. And we wanted to come and just talk to you about it, get your feedback, kind of explain to you what we're trying to do, why we're trying to do it, and then take any questions, maybe dispel some misconceptions about what we're trying to do, but also take your feedback on our efforts. In 2016, for some background, New York State adopted, as part of the state budget, a change in law that required the execution of 4 lockdown drills per year per school, every single school, public, private, otherwise. And it was done kind of in the heat of the moment after a number of terrible school shootings. They're all terrible. And it was done with this belief that the more drills we do, the better off we're all going to be and the safer we're all going to feel. And that is our solution to addressing an epidemic of gun violence in our country, and especially in schools. And I don't fault the people who did that for taking that step, 7, 8 years ago. What we have seen since then, though, in the year since, has been that just mandating more drills has actually not succeeded in helping to keep kids safe. Especially because the state law has no standards attached to it. There's no requirements that the drills be done with any specific level of standards, with any level of standardization across, forget about school districts, I mean, cities or across the state, not even across school districts. And so what you find is this hodgepodge approach where some schools take a soft approach, some schools take a very aggressive approach. Parents have no idea when these drills are happening. They get noticed after the fact. Students are becoming increasingly traumatized because they are basically simulating a mass shooting in their school 4 times a year. And for some students of a certain age, older students, they might understand, but this applies to 4-year-olds. This applies to 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds. And so the lack of any consistent standards or explanation about this, we think is actually having a really detrimental impact on kids. And the data bears that out. Across the country, this has become a growing issue. The American Federation of Teachers, Every Town for Gun Sense in America, Moms Demand Action, have all kind of done a lot of research on this and found that rates of anxiety and depression have increased significantly, about 30 or 40%, as it relates to when students are asked about the impact of lockdown drills in their daily lives. So what we are trying to do with our legislation is to say, we don't want to live in a world where we don't have to think about this terrible, eventuality, which thankfully in New York, we've not had a school shooting in 20 years because we have very good gun laws in New York. But we don't think that the more drills equals more safety. We want to change the law to say you have to do at least one. You could do more than one, but at least one. And it has to be done to a certain level of standard. It has to be done with trauma-informed standards. It has to be done to give special accommodations to students who have special needs, whether those are physical, developmental needs, emotional needs, psychological needs, etc. We want to give parents notice about these drills, as well as the ability to opt out should they not want their child to have to go through multiple and successive drills over and over again. It was funny, when we were debating this bill in the Senate in the beginning of June, just as the floor debate began, my colleague from Buffalo next to me got an email that there was a lockdown drill in his child's school that very day, and he had no idea about it. Literally, the timing could not have been better. So we think there's a smarter, better way to do this. We have been working with, I mentioned some of the coalition partners, Teachers Union and Moms Demand Action, Every Town for Gun Sense. The New York State Association of Pediatrics is supporting our efforts here because they see the impact and the mental health impact on kids. We've been working with March for Our Lives and a bunch of other gun violence groups, New Yorkers Against Gun Violence. We want to put better standards in place and also reduce what we think is an excessive number of drills on these young people. And then give every school district kind of the option if they want to do more. They want to do 2? Sure, let's do it to the right standards. So that's what we want to talk to you about, and get your thoughts and your feedback and your comments on that. I'm really hopeful that we can make another push of this next year and try to pass this into law, and really do something better and smarter for these kids. So I'll stop there, and I'm happy to take questions, comments, compliments, whatever.
Thank you so much. We'll turn it to our parliamentarian.
I'm going to open it up to our Zoom members. Does anybody on the Zoom have questions, you can raise your hand or put a question in the chat if you would prefer.
Joanne's just getting here now.
Oh, okay, great.
Oh, Catherine McKenzie.
Hi, I just want to say thank you so much for doing this because I feel like this is a really important one for the kids.
Yeah.
Oh, wait,
Catherine,
hold on.
Give me one
Wait,
second.
Catherine, one moment.
So. You wanna do it
On mine? Okay. No?
Hold on.
Okay. Catherine, can you hear us?
Yes, did it work? Did you hear me?
We can't hear you. Can we hear?
No.
Give me 1 second.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Okay, I just wanted to say that I really appreciate and thank you for doing this. As you can tell, I have a 6-year-old here who just went through that last week, and it was really hard for me listening to her go over it.
I'm sorry, Catherine. We lost you for a minute. Could you repeat that again?
I just wanted to say thank you for having this bill, for trying to do this for the kids, because
Go ahead.
hearing,
The floor is yours.
yeah, I just wanted to say thank you.
I made this bunny myself.
She was just saying, thank you very much for this bill that her child had just gone through something like this. She was appreciates everything. Did I get the right button?
And now I'd like to ask the translators.
There's
Oh,
Christine.
sorry. Excuse me,
Christine.
there's someone in the
Here's-
chat. How to raise my hand. Oh, okay.
Can't figure out how to raise my hand. I'm so sorry. Yeah, I also wanted to say thank you for introducing this bill. My daughter is 5, and she's already been through a few of these, and it makes me sick to my stomach every time. And we find out, after the fact, and as she gets older, she's just going to be more aware of what this means. And yeah, I would love to eliminate these entirely, but a reduction in the number of them would be a great start. I do have a question, which is there anything we can do to help move this forward as constituents?
Support it.
Well, so I'll turn it over. We're joined now by Joanne Simon, who, as I mentioned, is my co-partner in this effort. I don't know, Joanne, if you want to take that question. What can
Well,
folks do?
I'm not sure I heard the whole question, but
What can constituents do to support?
you can support the bill in a variety of ways. You could write a letter of support. The CEC could pass a resolution. There are a couple of ways that you can do this. We aren't going back to Albany until January, so there's nothing is passing until January anyway. So you have a little time to figure out what is the best way for CEC 15 to be supportive. We have had other CECs, for example, have passed resolutions supporting this, in part because they had people on their CECs that were, some of them were teachers and of course were parents, and were very involved in the gun violence prevention issues. So this is one of those issues where the lockdown drills were, excuse me, sounded like a good idea. It's kind of the kind of thing you would think would make a difference, but from the research we've seen, and this is research across the country, not just in New York, that hasn't been the case. I'm sure Andrew has, Senator Gennardis has told you all about that. But I think that this is one of those things where we can do them better to the extent that they have an effect and they make everybody feel better and more calm. I think it's great that students understand more about it, that We do this in a way that's age appropriate and consistent across classrooms, because one of the concerns we have had is that it's really kind of a hodgepodge. And I know we just had a situation out of Buffalo today where the teacher wasn't there for the drill, and the students were all texting their parents, frightened that this was a real shooter. And so that really shouldn't be happening. You know, it's bad enough it happens when there's a situation, right? And we, thank God, in New York have never had a school shooting, but we don't want students to reacting that way because they just didn't realize.
We have a question
Sure.
on online. This bill is not changing what actions the school will take in the instance of a true emergency.
No.
No, if there's a real emergency, this doesn't change what you do. What it does is it changes how we go about the practice, right? These drills, making sure that the practice that is done is age appropriate, trauma informed, accommodates kids with disabilities. We have so many of our students who are already traumatized by gun violence in their communities. And we don't want to make that worse, right? We want them to not only be safe, but to feel safe in school. And that has been unfortunately, the consequence of not having an approach to do this that works, that students have been left to feel less safe. I have a handout. Oh, I see. Oh, hand up.
We don't have anyone else from the question. I wanted to ask our interpreters. Anyone who you're working with has a question? Our Mandarin interpreters, do you have any questions? Our Spanish interpreters?
No question in Spanish line.
I'm going to open it up to the floor.
Okay.
Does anybody in our audience have any questions? No? Yes.
Have you integrated the new ring that they're gonna have for schools? Has that been discussed a little bit about as another way of reducing the need for these lockdowns? If we have the new doors, just both ring,
Well,
trying to get into the school, we have to bring to get into the school. Has that
Yeah.
been integrated into the bill?
Well, the bill is a
As evidence that
statewide
you
bill.
might reduce the need for those.
Right. So the bill is a statewide bill.
Okay.
And that ring system is something in New York City. Do I think that it may have a salutary effect? Quite possibly, right? But you know, it's hard to integrate that, for example. That could be an example we use in debate, or, you know, amend our sponsor memo, which is more explanatory than the legislation itself. But part of what we're doing here is reducing what is mandated. School districts are still free to make a determination as to what's appropriate for their districts. And so, for example, one thing that New York City has done, and New York City has done more on this than a lot of other school districts. So I want to give them credit for taking this issue seriously and, you know, instituting some of the changes they have. But that's one reason why, for example, we haven't integrated the evidence from a different school district, which has just started to put those in. You know, now I think all the schools have a buzzer, but it's not clear that everybody's using them or that the doors are really always locked. And we want to have a little more data on our side before we start talking about that as an example.
Andrew, if I could just say, please continue with your crusade on traffic safety. We have a lot of concerns.
Of course.
We appreciate that.
Thank you.
We have one more question from someone online, Catherine McKenzie. When could this bill go into effect?
Well, the bill is not in effect yet because it hasn't passed the Assembly. It passed the Senate. So as you know from how a bill becomes a law, which is very brief and really sometimes it takes much longer, it has to pass both houses and then the governor has to sign it. And so among the things we've been doing is talking with the State Department of Education. They've been engaged with stakeholders, which includes, the governor has a task force on public safety. And they've been working with those partners. We've also talked to labor and to the city. And so, you know, we're working on building support for this and making sure that we address the concerns that people have had, right? And I would say, and I've communicated this to the Department of Education, that sometimes what the groupings that we look at for school security are very heavily law enforcement oriented. And that's fine. They have a great deal of knowledge about that, but they also don't necessarily know children in the same way. And I think there need to be more educators, for example, that are you know, contributing to the conversation. So we've been encouraging them to do that. And I would say that the Department of Education doesn't disagree.
Is there a question over here? I'm going to open up to the, excuse me. Mitchell Rags. I know there's a pilot program of schools having cameras and locks manned by school safety. This may reduce the number of unnecessary drills. 8 drills by December is a lot.
Well, that's right. I mean, you know, I had a very long conversation with the commissioner and her people. And I will tell you, nobody likes the number of drills that there are, including those sort of fire and evacuation drills. There's an awful lot of them, and you have to do a lot of them in a very short period of time. So there's that concern. The other issue that, you know, the reason we've done this bill is because it is a lot, number one. And number two, the use of the other measures, such as the schools being locked, such as the bell system, et cetera, may reduce the need in New York City, because that's where we're doing that currently. But you don't have that option because it's a mandate. And so one of the things I say to people is a lot of people have been concerned about mandates lately, about all sorts of things that they don't want mandated. Well, we're trying to reduce the mandate, but not your option as a school district to come up with something that works for your district, right? And so if we successfully pass the bill and get it signed into law that the mandate is only one and your district would prefer to do 2, that's fine. There's nothing that this law would prohibit in doing that.
Thank you. I'm going to open it up to the CEC members. Nancy?
Thank you so much, both of you, for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Much
Nancy.
appreciated. And I think that the thing that is most needed that this bill addresses is the need for training. Because absolutely teachers it's invaluable that teachers have proper training for any type of drill. And it's not just about the drill. As a parent, I'm thinking about my child, God forbid, if the moment happens that this becomes a reality. And in thinking about that, I guess that's where I keep going back to the question of, isn't it helpful to have the proper training more than once to be able to properly learn how to do it? And
For the
one more-
teachers or the students?
For both.
Okay.
And then, and I'll just say one more thing. And then the second part that concerns me is the opting out. Because in, God forbid, the real situation happens, nobody's opting out of this horrible reality. And so to opt out and not know what to do when the horrible reality happens is problematic.
So I'll address it, and then certainly, Andrew, if you have comments. One of the things that we've learned from the research is that there's no research documenting in any way, shape, or form that practice makes perfect, or that practice really helps. Now, part of that may be that it's been a very poor practice. There's been no research on the correct number. The vast majority of states do 1 or 2. New York has 4 because they picked that out of the air. And, you know, the mandate in New York is thou shalt do 4. That's it. Doesn't say anything about them, doesn't say why, just says thou shalt do 4. So in looking at that, and we've talked to researchers directly, they haven't substantiated that. There is a theory that students will build sort of muscle memory, but that's really from survivalist training kind of thing. And that may be true for adults. It may be true for the older teenagers, but it's certainly less true for younger kids. And you know, certainly my granddaughter isn't the only voice I listen to, but she had no recollection of any lockdown drills before she started high school. And I'm sure that they happened, but she just didn't remember them. And her biggest complaint about the high school drills was last year, it was during math class all the time, and she was really resentful of losing that math instruction time. So she's sort of a geek about learning. And I think that that is another issue. If they're going to do 2, do it during math class, do it later on in the, you know, the day or something, so that you break it up and kids aren't routinely missing a particular class. What we know is that the research hasn't demonstrated the efficacy of practice on the part of students. I think one of the things that they've talked about a lot, and I think we probably could kind of take and believe, but they haven't really done the research on the efficacy of teacher training either. But clearly where a teacher and a school administrator knows what to do, they are better able to help their students. So whether you're a teacher or an administrator, a school health professional, you can be part of that team. And I think where the school team has the appropriate training and they know how to deal with kids about this issue, we're all going to be safer. Our kids are going to be safer. The other issue with opting out is it often happens for kids with significant disabilities, right? They just keep the kids home, so they're opting out anyway, right? And we need to do a better job of making sure that everybody knows what to do if there's a child with a disability. We all know that oftentimes kids with disabilities haven't been allowed on the school field trips because they couldn't get an accessible bus. We don't want to leave our kids with disabilities in a corner somewhere, even during a drill. I know in the school across the street from me, they'll bring the kids over to my class before they run a drill, over to my office. But that's nice for that school, but it's not something you can put into effect system-wide. Now, the other issue about opting out is that one of the things we've done is we've looked at other states, and there are a number of states that have opt-out, and we've actually looked and found documents that are their policies and the forms that they send home. And that again would be up to the school district on how they would want to do that. That's what they're doing in other states. And so we've been able to provide that information directly to the Department of Education to answer those concerns that they may have, that there's a way to do this. We have guidance from other states. You don't have to adopt what another state is doing, but there is guidance for from other states about best practices in doing an opt-out.
I'll just say, while there is, to Joanne's point, that the data on how much young people are retaining this training, it shows that they're actually not retaining a lot of it. 5-year-old, how do you get to a 5-year-old to be quiet, right? It's impossible. Even 8, 9, 10, they're not retaining this. What they are retaining is what they are doing. And so there was one parent we heard the story of whose 8-year-old casually said, "Mom, do you remember the time I almost died in school a couple months ago?" She goes, "What are you talking about?" And like the kid went through a drill, parent had no idea actually, went through a drill, and he normalized the thought that he had actually lived through a shooting.
Right.
Did not remember anything about his training, just thought that there was an actual shooting on his campus and he got lucky and he almost died. So that is that is not the type of position we want to put these young people in the name of trying to make us feel like we're doing something to keep them safe. So that's the first thing. And then secondly, what was my second point that was filled out for you? It'll come to me. So I'll pause there.
I would say
Yeah.
a number of my
Yeah.
colleagues have had similar stories. For example,
Yeah.
about the 8-year-old who really thought there was a shooter.
Oh, I'm sorry, I remember the story.
right?
So
Yeah.
on the parental issue, there was one other story we learned about where a young girl had PTSD because she was the victim of domestic abuse.
Yeah.
And when she had to crouch down, it triggered her when she was crouching down to block the blows from her abusive father. And like could not get any type of, accommodation or any type of recognition that was a very triggering action for her. And so the parent said, like, I don't want my daughter to have to live through this 4 times, just in the name of, school safety. And like, I think that those types of cases present a really important consideration for us to think about, because this is a sad reality that a lot of our kids are coming to these issues and these questions with a lot of trauma, with a lot of emotional issues, and a lot of other things that are weighing on them, on top of this realization that they are preparing for a shooting. So it's your point is well taken, though, about.
We
Yeah.
have, we're gonna go through the CEC.
There was another question over there, but one thing, if I could just add to something he said, and that is that, we absolutely want parents to be informed as well, and to understand about how they can help their child. So in this particular example, there's a mother who, the only reason she would opt her daughter out is because the practice is itself traumatizing. But she can talk to her daughter, the teachers can talk to the daughter and say, this is what you do, sweetie, without making you go practice that, because this kid already knows how to duck, right?
Okay, I'm gonna go down some of our CEC members who might have more questions. Antonia?
Yeah, thank you both for coming here and sharing the bill with us. Nancy mostly asked my questions already, but what you just said about explaining the steps of a drill resonated with me, because I remember learning in elementary school about stop, drop, and roll, but I don't remember ever
Doing it.
stop, dropping, and rolling.
Exactly.
in a
Yes,
classroom.
right, right.
But I
And that's
remember
fire
I was supposed to
prevention.
do that.
Yep.
Right, and that's
So there
important,
might
that's a good
be
example.
way to do this visually without having to actually have a drill. Thank you.
Yes.
No, sorry.
But
we're
Nancy
thinking
However it is you're
here
doing
in
it, yeah,
this,
yeah. You call, but I just wanted to alert you.
Nancy has already covered a lot of this conversation. We've already spoken about it beforehand. I think it's really, really important that there is a focus here for children that have particular need, and that, we are trying to target that. One of my fears, as I mentioned, was Nancy already addressed, that it's the option of opting out without, especially for older children who maybe may have more capacity to go through these drills without the same trauma that it can impose on children with disabilities or children that are younger and don't understand where this is coming from. So is there any room there for where the opt-outs are? Are there any delineations for when these opt-outs are allowed or not?
Well, we are leaving that to the school districts, right? So in part because, this is a school district state, but also that they can make that determination, that's a local determination, better than we can. We don't want a one size fits all. And so that is one thing. The other thing that, if you look at school shootings, and we pulled together all the school shootings since Columbine, and with the exception of maybe 2, every single school shooting, and they're extremely rare, right? They're extremely rare, even in states where they've happened a couple of times, right? Is that the school shootings are done by recent graduates or current students. And so one of the possible consequences that were not envisioned is that you're teaching these kids how to do a better job of coming back and shooting up the school. And you never know that, right? Because the vast majority of young people aren't people that anybody really thought would do such a thing, right? So we don't have a lot of hard research on that, but that is something researchers are starting to look at. And again, that is why we want to give that discretion to the school districts.
Thank you. Donalda? No comment from me. Hans Ariata?
No comments.
Stanley?
Elaborate more on what the process will be with this special need, how do you try it, is there a specific rule that they go through?
That would be up to the school district. And I think it would be up to the school because obviously everybody's physical plant is a little different. What's important to us is that, you know, in the legislation is that it is providing the accommodations that kids need because of a disability. We're not going to make that determination, and we don't think it's appropriate for state legislators to decide whether for these children who have this diagnosis, they need to do this or whatever. I think that also goes to age, it goes to language facility, it goes to the preparation for students and what their particular disability-related needs are, and the layout of the school itself, right? Some schools may have ways that they can do a safe harbor, for example, better than some other schools, and that may be part of their approach.
I just want to thank you for this bill, and especially the way that you were able to break it down in a really thoughtful, trauma-informed way. In particular, just stating explicitly in the legislation the importance of age-appropriate explanations, making these accommodations, and as an educator, I also got very frustrated when we would have drills at the exact same period every single time.
Yeah.
And so actually putting that into the legislation to change the time of day, I think is very smart.
And, you know, one other thing I wanted to, I would say is that even in New York City, where we have done far more than I think most districts with regard to this, we have also heard from teachers who've said, the only instruction I got was when I did something wrong and another teacher told me I had done it wrong, but I really didn't know what I had done wrong, and I don't really know how to do it right. And so, you know, training takes time, it takes some resources. We don't expect that everybody will be really facile at doing this overnight, but we do think it's an important conversation to have, and we leave that up to the school districts to figure that out.
We're going to take one more question. That's okay. No, go ahead, please. Are you sure? No.
Okay. I will take the time that was ceded back to me by the ones that
Sorry.
didn't ask the question. And I have one more question. Will this bill be accompanied by money from the state to make it possible for there to be the resources needed to be properly teaching teachers, to be providing the additional training that this bill is essentially calling for?
So one of the things, you know, in our conversations with the state education department, you know, like Joanne said, they are also working on a task force. The governor has a task force. I'm sure that they're going to present a budget request that is associated with this type of change. It's not legislated in this bill because we don't mix the policy bills with budget bills, but we fully anticipate and expect there to be a supplemental budget request when we do the budget next year that will ensure that there are resources being deployed in a way that makes sure that we can actually do the trainings and do the development and do all the stuff that we need to be doing here in order to do this right.
And the state education department has already contracted and gotten some training videos that are available on their website that would be helpful for the schools themselves. Kind of a best practices approach, right? There are quite a number of groups out there selling various programs. Not all of them are terribly well informed or terribly good. There's what we don't want is a cottage industry of people deciding that they know what to do without actually working in a collaborative way to make sure that this is actually the best practice for schools and that schools have the ability to make the determinations they need to make.
Thank you so much. Really
Thank you. And
appreciate
we have a handout that we just have. If we can just leave it somewhere and you can pick it up if you'd like.
can I just have 15 seconds to highlight something? I'd love to come back to this group in the future to talk about another set of bills that I just introduced 2 weeks ago with the governor and the attorney general around social media and kids. The two bills, one is called the Safe for Kids Act. It would prohibit social media companies from using algorithms to automatically show kids content without explicit consent if they're under the age of 18. The impact of mental health on young people because of social media is well documented. The US Surgeon General has issued a warning about it. In fact, the rates of depression, self-harm, suicidal ideation are through the roof, all linked to the addictive nature of social media. So we are trying to break that issue apart and really focus on the mental health of kids. And the second bill that's related to that is called the Child Data Privacy Protection Act. It would prohibit internet companies from collecting personal data from young people. Hey buddy, you want them here? And then selling it for advertisements, which is how they make their money, and which is why they want you to be on the phone constantly with the addictive feed, because that's how they make money, is by keeping your eyes and the eyes of kids glued on their screens. So we introduced it 2 weeks ago. Today, the Attorney General just announced a lawsuit with 45 other states against Facebook about how they have harming kids' mental health with their algorithms. I'd love to come back to you all again in the future to talk in more detail about this, but I just want to put that on your radar because in addition to the lockdown drill bill, this will be a big legislative priority for me when I go back to Albany in January. Right?
So if we can talk about one other thing, I know politicians, you know, and that is that, as many of you know, I have worked in the area of dyslexia and reading for a very long time, and New York has just launched an effort called the Path Forward, along with other states, to really shift the way we are educating our teachers in colleges of education so that they are better able to better prepared to teach reading according to the way kids' brains process reading. That really hasn't been happening in a consistent format. Many schools are using approaches that work for some kids, but not for the vast majority of kids. Roughly 35% of kids will learn to read no matter what you do to them. It's the other kids that we're concerned about. And so you may have read that Teachers College is no longer associated with the person who had been the leading purveyor of what we call balanced literacy. And so we're really looking at shifting that focus. I'm the state legislative designee to this because I'm on the higher ed committee and it's my area of expertise. But state ed is involved, the regents are involved, SUNY's involved, the independent colleges and universities, CUNY is involved. And so we're all working together to move the state forward together in a way that isn't about sort of sniping or territorial things or turf. We're all working together, and we'll have a state action plan that'll come out by June about how we're going to move the state forward.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Simon, Senator Bernardin. Thank you. Yes.
And thank you all. And thank you, Nancy. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Actually, I will not even sit because now I'm turning over to, where's my, 1 second. No, it's okay. All right, I am turning it over now to the Office of District Planning. We have Tori Fenton, Chris Gurley, and Brian Smith. And they will give a presentation, their yearly presentation on our district. Thank you. So let's see, I will put the mic in the middle here.
And as long as nobody touches that button.
Oh, Vanessa's moving. Okay, wait. Yep. So let me put the mic on this side. All right. There's 3 chairs. Thank you, guys.
Okay, so we're fine. Okay, great. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us. We'll start with quick introductions. My name is Tori Fenton. I'm from the New York City Public Schools Office of District Planning. And we'll introduce my colleagues first, and then we'll share a little bit about what we will be presenting tonight. So Brian, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Brian Smith. I'm also with the Office of District Planning. I'm in analytics. I currently serve Brooklyn. Pleasure to be here. Chris.
I'm Chris Gurley, Associate Director of Planning for North Brooklyn and Staten Island.
Great. So tonight, and it's really nice to see some familiar faces and some new faces on the council and at the meeting. So I think we'll spend a little bit of time sharing a brief overview of the work that our office does in partnership with school districts and with community education councils. And then we have a deck with data specific to District 15. It is an annual presentation that we do. So this is the most recent data that we have for the district. I think, do we have, okay, great. We have our deck behind us as well. So if you go ahead to slide 4, just a little bit about the work that our office does. So district planning partners directly with school communities, with superintendents, with CECs, as well as our partner offices to assess district needs and priorities. As we identify on slide 4, as we identify those needs in a district, we have a few levers that we can use in order to affect change in a school building. So those, some of which you may be familiar, those can include a rezoning or an unzoning, so changing zoning lines. They can include school mergers, where we consolidate 2 schools together, the opening of new schools, as well as the opening of new programs like ASD, Nest, and Horizon, as well as 3K and pre-K programming. Some other levers that we have also include grade expansions or grade truncations, so we can adjust to the grades that a school building serves. A good example is 676, where they are transitioning from an elementary school to a middle school. We also can resite existing school buildings, so changing the location of where a school operates. Our office also partners closely with the office that supports charter schools. So where we receive a request from a charter school for space in DOE buildings, that's something our office supports. And then we work on an annual basis to assess enrollment, looking at trends over time and identifying where there are needs. So schools that are seeing increased demand, where we would like to expand the number of seats that they can provide to students, and schools that are seeing, a decline or where they're struggling with enrollment. We're thinking about all of these levers, as well as partnering with districts on, programmatic and meeting the vision of a school. So on slide 5, we outline our process. So every year, our office looks at data. We review key information about the district, about neighborhoods within the district, and we identify key planning needs for the upcoming year. Sometimes we're planning a few years in advance. We have strategic conversations about data like we're doing tonight. So we have met with Superintendent Alvarez and team to review this data. Now we're sharing it with you all, and we're here to hear any questions, concerns, take feedback to help inform this annual planning process. Then we would work together if we, for example, identified a need that could be met with one of those levers that I just referenced. And if that's the case, then we would potentially initiate 1 or 2 of the mandated processes that our office helps facilitate. On the next slide, just a note on how much we value community engagement. It's why we're here tonight. It's why we partner closely with councils to really understand from your perspective and from your experience and the experience of the students and families you represent about the needs in the district. We want to engage in an actual dialogue with you. Tonight it's going to be presentation heavy because we're trying to cover a lot of data, but we really seek to have a two-way communication. We want to hear all voices with a priority on equity, and we're hoping that through transparent communication, we can really ensure that our buildings are best serving students and students are receiving the resources they need. On slide 7, this just sort of summarizes that process for those of you who are visual learners. We start by assessing those needs and where there are opportunities to affect change. We do district data consultations like this one tonight. Throughout the year and on an ongoing basis, we have focused community engagement. In particular, if there's a school community where we are pursuing a change in how that school or that building is utilized, then we are doing really intentional formal engagement. We're going to see SLT meetings, we are coming to CEC meetings where we are presenting on a specific change, and we're having some broader public engagements like a town hall or a community meeting. And then, as I mentioned, if we are using either some of the levers like reciting a school or changing the grades they serve, or merging schools, that requires the Chancellor's Regulation A190. If we are considering any change to zoning lines, that requires Chancellor's Regulation A185. And Chris is going to share a little bit of information. For some of you, this is a refresh, so we'll be brief, but about those two processes. There on slide 9. I think this computer also picks up a mic. I could be wrong.
If not, just like tilt.
Should we move?
Yeah.
Does that work? Hello? Okay, thank you. Again, my name is Chris, and as Tori mentioned, we have all of these different levers by which we can meet community needs in our schools. All of these levers are governed by one of two regulations that spell out exactly the steps that we have to take in order to bring about these changes into reality. So the first regulation that we'll go over is called A190 on page 9. And so Chancellor's Regulation A190 governs the public review process for any proposal resulting in a significant change in school utilization. So these changes include grade level changes, co-locations of new or existing schools, reciting schools, and school mergers. And so for all of these significant changes, the DOE, we are required to publish an education impact statement. And in some cases, we also publish a document called a building utilization plan, or a BUP. We convene a joint public hearing with the CEC and affected school communities. We publish an analysis of the public comment. And then after all of this, the Panel for Education Policy, or PEP, votes to either approve or not approve our proposal. So that's the A190 process. The one other process we want to go over tonight on the next slide is the Chancellor's Regulation A185. And A185 just deals with school rezoning. And so rezoning, for those who don't know, is a collaborative process where the geographic area of school zones are changed, or a new zone is created for a new school, or we're adjusting an existing zone. And again, this is all governed by A185. And so ODP and the superintendent would develop a rezoning plan in partnership with the CEC. And then in this case, the CEC votes to approve or to not approve the rezoning process or the new zone proposal. So for 190, the PEP gets the ultimate vote on whether or not we proceed. And with 185, the Community Education Council gets the ultimate vote on whether or not we proceed. And so I think just the key takeaway for these two regulations are, again, for all of these processes, there's a very specific roadmap that we have to follow to bring about these changes, and they take time. And so, we're not able to make these changes, last minute or anything like that. There's lots of opportunity for the public to be aware and provide their input before any of these changes are finalized. And with that, I think we're turning it over to Brian to go over some of our District 15 specific data.
I can actually, just as a transition here, thank you, Chris. So that's the overview of district planning. Now we'll share some District 15 specific data. That begins on slide 13. And just at a high level, and this table should look familiar to many of you. I will say there are several data visualizations that are new this year, so we will highlight those for you and spend a little more time on the new slides. But here I just want to make sure you know what you have in front of you. So we're looking at District 15 enrollment. We include data from the past 5 years, and we also broke this data out by grade span. So you'll see with the expansion of 3K, that data begins in 2020, but really expands in 2021. But for pre-K, for elementary school, K to 5, middle school, grades 6 to 8, we also included high school data for grades 9 to 12. And you can see the total enrollment in District 15 each year over the past 5 years. These are all from audited register. So I know for 22-23, there may have been some fluctuations last year after audited register, but this is our most recent official data. Along the bottom, you will see a percent change year over year. That is the 1 year percent change in the total enrollment from just the previous year. So from 21-22 to 22-23, across grades 3K to 12, there was a 2.2% decline. We think that that's, not the most meaningful data when we're thinking about individual schools or individual grade spans. So we also provided the change over the past 1 year and the 5-year change for each grade span. Those are in the 2 columns on the right. So for example, you'll see that at the elementary school level, K to 5, over the past 5 years, enrollment has declined by 23%. But over the past year, so more recently, and a smaller change in time, enrollment in elementary school grades in District 15 has declined by 3%. So we think it is stabilized. I think, as all of you know, and as we discussed last year with the pandemic, we saw a lot of fluctuation in enrollment across the city. Citywide enrollment has been on the decline since its peak in the 2016-2017 school year, but we think that was exacerbated with the pandemic, and now we have sort of leveled off. But the reason this grade span breakout is interesting is you have a 23% decline at the elementary school level, but at the middle school level, over the past 5 years, enrollment has declined by 5%. So much more stable at the middle school level. And then again, a lesser decline over the past 1 year. So Brian is going to walk you through the first set of new data, and that is elementary school retention.
Thank you, Tori. So this is not a new section, but maybe the layout is a bit new. This table is structured like the one we saw before, but it's a little bit different. So this is on District 15 elementary school retention. Now, elementary school retention, or the elementary school retention rate, is the percentage of all K to 5 age residents in District 15 who choose to go to a District 15 school. Now, if you notice, looking at that totals line in the bottom, the bolded text, over the past 5 years, the total number of elementary school age residents in District 15 has decreased by about 17%. From that number, 22,561 to 18,664. Concurrently, the total number of District 15 residents enrolled in District 15 schools, this represents a smaller portion. I'm sorry.
It's new for all of us.
Yeah. So take a look at that number, that 65% that you're seeing here for 22-23. That represents your elementary school retention rate for the last year's AR. It's down by 71%, but keep in mind for that, because you're going to see it in the next slide. During the same 5-year period, we've also seen charter school enrollment increase slightly, but still represents a small portion of your total enrollment at around 1,000 students, up from 800 in 17-18 school year. That percentage share went from around 4% to 6%. Yeah.
Brian, can I add one thing?
Yeah.
So when we're looking, and actually, if you don't mind going to slide 14, the slides are similar. So we'll also share this retention data at the middle school level. But in this chart, what is new about this is how we are looking at elementary school age children. So the total that Brian called out, in last year, it was about 18,600. We're seeing that as the number of elementary school aged residents in District 15. If you then look at the rows above, we're saying of those of those elementary school aged residents, what choices are they making in the setting in which they're enrolling? So of that 18,000 and change, about 12,000 elementary school aged residents enroll in District 15 schools. A much smaller number enrolls in district schools in neighboring districts. A similar number, about 1,000, enroll in charter schools, and 4,200 elementary school aged residents enroll in non-public schools, so private or parochial. The other category here encompasses perhaps homeschool children or students who left the system kind of during the year. On the far right, we want to understand from a different lens, what share of residents are each of these settings accounting for? So 5 years ago, about 71% of elementary school aged residents enrolled in a District 15 school. Last year, 65% of elementary school aged residents enrolled in a District 15 school. So a smaller share of residents are enrolling in District 15 district schools. It's not that much smaller, 65 to 71. But when you think about the total number of residents also declining, it's a smaller portion and there are smaller students to go around. So we're thinking about this from kind of two angles here, from our raw numbers as well as the share of residents.
Yes, so the raw numbers is something that we've had previously, but the share of residents is the new piece to sort of put that into perspective. And that share of residents is referring to what percentage of that specific group. In this case, looking at the top row, it would be students age K to 5 that are staying within District 15 schools, and then comparing that to the total number of K to 5 age residents that are in District 15. I implore you to look at that 65% because you're going to see that on the next slide, basically, to put that into context. Even though total K to 5 age residents has gone down by, was it 17%? You've only seen a 6% drop in the percentage share that is being retained. Can we go to the next slide, please? So yeah, that 65% here you're seeing, which is your elementary school retention rate, is the highest when stacked up across other Brooklyn districts. Here you have bar graphs for only Brooklyn districts and only K to 5. And as you can see at 65%, even though you've seen a drop in the last 5 years, it still represents the highest elementary school retention rate in all of Brooklyn. And a matter of fact, even the district right below you is 10 percentage points away. So you sit atop that pretty far. And the next slide is, this mirrors the elementary school retention, but this is just for middle school. So this is six to 8 age residents and where they attend school. Unlike the elementary school table, you're not seeing a large population decrease. Instead, you're seeing relative stability. If you look at the total, in 2017-18, it was like 9,257, and last year in 22-23 AR, it was 9,245. So relative stability, and if you look at the percentage shares, most of them have not moved more than a few percentage points. So this tells slightly a different tale than we've seen in the K to 5, but this is a similar analysis. But then also I implore you to look at that 47% because you're going to see that again on the next slide. So this one is similarly to what you saw for elementary school. This is for 6 to 8, and you're not quite on top, but you're somewhere in the upper middle of the pack at 47%, or 6 to 8 aged residents being retained in District 15 schools.
We can't wait to welcome any questions about this data, but we are going to keep on going. Chris is going to now talk through articulation.
Yeah, thank you. We can go to the next slide on page 18. I'll just go ahead for the folks who have the packet in front of you. We're on page 18. So as we know, there are different points when students enter our public schools. These days, one of the earliest points you can enter is pre-K. And so we're curious, for students who enter our schools in pre-K, how many stay with us going to a public school kindergarten? And so on page 18, we see this table. As with the other tables, at the bottom bolded row, you see the total. And you see for the 2018 to 2019-20 school year, in total, there were around 2,700 pre-K aged students in District 15. And about 66% of those students were attending District 15 pre-K in District 15 schools. And then we were wondering for the next year, how many of them stuck with us for kindergarten. And we see in the next year, they were 64% of the students that were in a District 15 pre-K stuck with a District 15 kindergarten. So almost, 1-to-1. When they're with us for pre-K, most of them are sticking with the District 15 option for kindergarten. So that's really helpful information to know that when kids are coming to a District 15 school for pre-K, that really increases the likelihood that they're going to stick with District 15 public school for kindergarten. And as we go down the chart, we see the breakdown for the other options that are in the area. So about 10% of kids who did pre-K in another district school in a different district stuck there for kindergarten. About 6% were attending pre-K in a charter school, and then 5% stuck with them for kindergarten. And then it goes over non-public schools out of NYC and other. So again, over the past 4 years, the percentage of pre-K students leaving NYC or enrolling in charters or other school options for kindergarten stayed about the same. And while District 15 pre-K students are choosing options at similar rates, we're still seeing that overall population decline in the district, as we mentioned.
And on this, for both pre-K to K articulation and for 5th to 6th grade articulation, which we have next, these cohorts we found interesting because one represents before the pandemic, so the choices that they've made going into the 19-20 school year, and the other is our most recent data. And Chris, I'm just going to clarify one thing about this table. So we're actually looking at 2 separate cohorts. We can go to middle school on page 19. So on the left-hand side, we are looking at students who were enrolled in 5th grade in District 15 in the 2018 to 2019 school year. And our question was, where did they enroll in 6th grade in the 2019-2020 school year? That is on the left side. On the right side, we are saying there were 2,500 5th graders in District 15 in 21-22. And we asked, where did they attend 6th grade in the 22-23 school year? So just one note here, we have 2 batches of students and the choices that they made in their respective years.
That's correct.
Yeah, thank you. So for middle school, same thing. 2,800 in total, around 67% are going from a 5th grade public school to a 6th grade public school. And then the next most popular option is a middle school in a separate district. And then we see 5 years later, those rates are some slight adjustments. For the most recent school year, 63% of District 15 5th graders stuck with a District 15 middle school. Then around 20% were attending a middle school in another district. And then it goes over the breakdown for charter schools and et cetera.
Great. So those are our kind of district-wide data points. We have a couple school level pieces of information that we would like to highlight. The first being on slide 20, our Office of District Planning, we take a look across the city to understand kind of what's happening at the school level when it comes to enrollment. One threshold we use just as an internal measure to understand, what's sustainable in schools is looking at the number of schools whose total enrollment is in the bottom 25% citywide, serving grades K to 12. In District 15, there are 3 elementary schools in the bottom 25% of enrollment citywide, and there are no middle schools under that threshold. Here we're looking at, roughly 270-ish students total enrolled. And so those 3 schools, we included some information about them here. One being the Maurice Sendak School, the second being PS 295, and the third being PS 124. We know there are a lot of nuances on the ground here, so we just like to pull this as a cut of information that we share with councils across the city. We included their total enrollment from 5 years ago as well as last year to understand if there is a trend there. And we looked at the 5-year change. We also included information about their application data from this current school year. So of families who applied and enrolled in school this year, as well as their kindergarten zone size. So trying to understand if they retained all of the kindergartners who live in their zone, what would healthy enrollment look like? So these are schools where we're not proposing any changes, but I think as you all, if you all are the liaisons, or if you have children at these schools, or if you know of some good things they're doing, or if you have ideas for us to help increase their enrollment, that's something that we as an office are interested in hearing. On the flip side, on page 21, we included elementary schools and middle schools or schools serving 6th grade that are highest demand in the district. So at kindergarten, we looked at schools where their total kindergarten seats are included in this chart, as well as their fall applications. So you'll notice here that all of these schools had more applications for the seats that they were able to offer. And therefore they made the cut here. For 6th grade, similarly, we're looking at the total number of 6th grade seats that they had available compared to their applications. And we tried to assess kind of any nuances here. At the elementary school level, 4 of these schools are kind of typical zone schools. Brooklyn New School is on as a choice school. And at the middle school level, we were just looking at geographies, but here we're seeing very high demand across all of these middle schools. So similarly, if you have kind of highlights or things to share at the school level about what these schools are doing well, we work with Superintendent Alvarez and team to understand if there are practices that can be replicated at other schools as well. But the good news about these schools that are, really meeting demand and seeing sustained demand. And the final piece of data we'd like to share is on slide 22. This is typical data that we refresh for you all every year on District 75, as well as students in temporary housing. So for District 75, you'll see that we included the current capacity, so the existing District 75 seats that are available at the elementary school, middle school, and high school levels for both District 15, Brooklyn, as well as the city. We also included the number of residents who are eligible for those District 75 services, and we compared those two numbers to see if there is an outstanding need or if we currently have sufficient or more than enough seats available to serve the residents who require services. So you'll notice here that at the elementary school level, there is a deficit of 115 District 75 seats. So our office throughout this year will be assessing if there are opportunities to either expand existing District 75 or potentially open a new site. At the middle school and high school levels, there are no deficits. So we have a sufficient number of seats across District 15, Brooklyn, and the city. But our office is keenly interested in travel need for families. So this is not saying that we have enough seats that are really feasible or convenient for families who need them. It might require students traveling, 2, 4, 6 miles from their home to get to a school that has a District 75 seat available for them. So it's something we're looking kind of at the neighborhood level to understand where we may need adjustments in District 75. For students in temporary housing, we included both the raw number of students in temporary housing as well as the percent in the district that require that are in temporary housing for elementary, middle, and high school, and for District 15, Brooklyn, and the city. You'll see here that District 15, according to last year's audited register, was serving, slightly under the borough and city averages of students in temporary housing. But I know this is something that many councils have been interested in, given asylum seeking families and new arrivals. So also wanted to caveat that this is from audited register, so from October of last year. And there may have been some fluctuations after audited register captured that data. And that's something we'll be looking at as we come close to audited register for this current school year. And finally, we have a map of the district with all schools, K to 12, district and charter on the last page. Our contact information is also in the deck, and we can follow up if anyone has questions with our contact info.
Thank you so much. As Leslie will begin the process of question and answering and comment.
Thank you. All right, I'd like to open it up to our participants or our families on Zoom. If anyone has a question or comment, you can raise your hand or put a question in the chat. Oh, Elton Dodson.
Hello, everyone. Can you
Wait,
hear
hold
me?
on 1 second.
One second, please.
Do I just unmute mine?
You can unmute yours, or you can. I can put on mine if you want.
Sorry, Elton, one moment.
Okay. Can you say something, Elton?
Test, test, test.
We're good.
Yep.
You can.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much. It's good to see everyone. My name is Elton Dodson. I am the president of the PS 295 PTA and also co-president of the District 15 President's Council. It's always fun to be name dropped for distressing reasons, but I'm glad to see it there. I would like to say we very enthusiastically would like to invite you to SLT and take advantage of your offer to help us brainstorm. And obviously, we need all the resources we can to work on our declining enrollment, although it has stabilized. But as your data confirms, you know, it's been a challenge since really before COVID. And right now, we find ourselves in sort of a death spiral between the enrollment and the austerity cuts coming from the mayor's office. I mean, we've had over a 36% budget cut over the past couple of years. So it's difficult. It's difficult to work on saving our school and dealing with our enrollment when we're being pinched and able to offer less and less to our parents and students. And as a case in point, you know, we are the studio school for arts and culture, and the DOE took away our entire music program. So we, as a PTA, had about a month's deadline to raise $60,000 to save our music teacher, which is exactly what we did. So that shows you the resiliency and the commitment and the passion of the parent community at 295. And we need the same in return from the DOE. I will say we have gotten it from our district. Our district leadership is incredible and they're inspirational. And I know that they're on our team. And it's so good to hear the presentation tonight and know that there are resources out there. Please, please keep us in mind. I will reach out formally to invite you out to SLT because we are forming an enrollment committee and we would love your input.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Elton. And yeah, we look forward to you reaching out, and we'll work closely with Superintendent Alvarez to think about supports for 295. But thank you for sharing.
Okay, we have a question online. How do you anticipate implementation of the class size law will impact District 15?
That's a great question. It is certainly a priority for our office and for New York City Public Schools as we think about how to implement class size law. I think as many of you know, we do have several years to implement. So there is a large committee across the city working to assess options, and I believe they are working on recommendations for how we can implement, which might, vary by school. It will certainly vary by, what is going on in a school building, what their utilization rates are, and what their student populations look like. So that's something where we will have to kind of continue to engage in an ongoing conversation with all of you about how we'll implement, but we don't have any details to share tonight.
Yeah, I was just going to add that it's, I believe it's 5 years to being in fully compliance, and it is something that we take into account during our planning. And it is a process, but there's nothing concrete that we could say on that.
All right, I'd like to open it up, questions up to our translators. Oh, yes, of course.
So far, we started to do our own analysis of the class size in terms of what we have now already in place in alignment to. So far, we've done a mini analysis of our schools right now. As of right now, all grade bands are less than 50% compliant with the new class size law as it stands now today. Our K to 3, we're at 48.1% of official classes that have fewer than 20 students in their classes. From 4 to 8th grade band, it's 41.1% at this point, with less than 23 students or fewer in their classes. And then through 9th through 12th grade, we're at 46.9% in our district with 25 students or less at this point. At the next month's meeting, I can give the breakdown of the schools and where we are with that, because we're already trying to anticipate what we have to deal with going forward.
I'm just going to ask one more time on our Zoom if any of our translators have questions.
No question with Spanish line.
Thank you.
No question for Mandarin line.
Thank you.
No questions in the Bengali line.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to open it up to our audience. If anyone has questions or comments. Yes.
Is there a plan for the existing 676 building after this
building? Speaking of Red Hook, since we're in the neighborhood, thank you for that question. We had, through the A190 process, we have an approved proposal that is currently being implemented with 676, as I mentioned earlier. That plan includes both the change in grade span as well as a future resiting to a new school building. And I believe in the spring, we shared kind of an update on the timeline for the new building to open. I believe it's currently slated to open in spring of 2027 or by the fall of 2027. So we have some time to figure out the best use of current space in building KO27, where 676 is currently located. There are not any current plans for what is going to go into that space. So we anticipate that similarly as we developed the proposal for 676, we will be working with community members here in the area, with existing schools to think about the best use. And if that requires a proposal, we will also go through a process. If, for example, we were to recite something there, or I know there's been interest in using it for different community purposes as well, but there are no plans as of right now.
Any more questions from the audience? We have one more question from someone online. It says, is the data for D75 collected reflecting the students currently traveling out of their community for placement?
I think Tori touched on this about the D75 data. when we show a deficit or a not deficit, it doesn't mean that those seats are easily accessible. Folks can have to travel quite far sometimes for a seat. It doesn't denote where they are.
I think it also, perhaps for this question, this data is looking at the number of District 15 residents who are eligible for District 75 and the number of District 75 seats in District 15. So it's not a perfect one-to-one. We might also have residents in District 15 who are going to a seat in, say, District 17. So we can take a more nuanced look at specific communities. Our office does look at average travel distance that we aren't sharing here because it, with student privacy and because it fluctuates year to year. But this is our kind of quickest way to assess the need for either more District 75 seats or to help us pinpoint geographically where those can best serve families.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to open it up to the council members. Nancy?
Thank you so much. Thank you all for being here tonight. This is always something that I look forward to. The first thing I want to mention is actually your question about 676. So the participatory action research team that spends a year and a half doing research and speaking with community members, made up of community members, and myself as a member, developed with the Red Hook community the plan to make the changes to 676, and it was very clear that the building would become a community space in one way or another. So I think that's really important to make sure that that happens, because that was tantamount to the Red Hook community wanting that space to go through the changes that it did go through, that it would at the end of the day be a community space. Then I wanted to mention, Superintendent Alvarez, thank you so much for doing research on the class size bill as it's being implemented, or as it's working right now in District 15. When I look at the numbers for 118, and it shows that actually there's more students in this school than there are kindergartners in the zone, that shows that there's actually no problem at 118. Their kindergarten is going to keep growing. And all three of those schools are would seemingly, I don't know, we don't have the numbers, but they would seemingly fall within the class size mandate right now because they're not bursting at the seams. So this is an issue that we constantly have, that schools are bursting at the seams. The class size bill is here. We really need to rethink an understanding of what an underutilized school is, if that means that the school is, already in compliance, basically. And then the third thing I want to mention is looking at the middle schools that have, 500 applications for 180 seats. I noticed only one of them currently is co-located with other schools, if I'm correct. I believe at the middle schools, there's only one that's co-located. Is there another one? Two of them are co-located?
Excuse me, Nancy, can I ask you to come and speak into the microphone? Yeah.
Okay, so I'm wrong about that. Okay, so 3 of them are co-located, and my question there is, in terms of the building utilization plans for these schools, how can these building utilization plans be addressed and changed so that these schools are actually able to hold the students that want to go to these schools? Because obviously there may be other schools, maybe charter schools that are in those buildings that potentially would be better if they were not in those buildings. So what needs to be done to make it possible for these buildings to actually have our students in them? All right, thank you so much.
Do you want to take this one? Thanks, Nancy. Yes, and thank you, for shouting out the PAR process and reminding us. All that to say, there is no formal plan yet, but it's something we will be thinking about in the coming years. And I think it is a fair point to think about our schools that are not utilizing all the space that they're currently allocated, and what it means with how we are kind of framing sustainability at the school level in conjunction with implementing class size law. So I think a fair point, and I know 118 has done a lot of recruitment both in and outside of their zone. For middle schools, you know, I think we're aware of CEC 15's kind of stance on co-locations, especially with charter schools. And I know we have some that are really high demand in the district, and where they don't have any space to expand, even though there is demand at the 6th grade level and beyond. Building utilization plans exist for buildings where there are charter co-locations. They are written at the time that we are siting or co-locating a charter in a building. As it stands, increased demand for a co-located school is not grounds for revising that building utilization plan. It's a legal document that helps us outline what all the schools in a building are entitled to receive when there is a charter present. So I think this is something where, you know, it will be helpful for us to continue to hear from you about these schools that are in demand, about other schools in the district where there are space challenges or where there are district schools that could expand or grow, but where they can't because they are confined based on space. But just kind of at first glance, we don't actually have a mechanism to change the building utilization plans just due to increased demand or increased needs for space at other schools. It would require something bigger like a charter closing or a charter requesting to move, or us having an alternative plan that a charter agrees to.
Thank you. Antonia?
Sure. If you wouldn't mind going back to page 14, I have just a quick question. So where it says elementary school retention under other district schools, would that encompass children going to District 75 programs? That 5% number, would this include students who reside in District 15 but attend District 75 programs?
Or District 79.
Yeah, or District 79 as well, yes.
Well, not element.
Oh, yeah,
No,
sorry,
not
not
District
relevant.
79. No.
Yes.
And then under non-public schools, would that number encompass students who have Carter cases and they attend
Homeschool,
private
yeshivas, all that, yes.
all of those?
Mhm.
I feel like the District 75 aspect of it should be broken out in the data at the very least. And perhaps the Carter cases. I don't know if that's.
It's a little,
If there's privacy issues or something. Well, I mean.
the D75 data, that could be possible because D75 is within the DOE offices, but for the non-public schools, that's where it gets a little bit tricky of like itemizing that out. It's less accessible, and it's definitely not something we own. We could look into it, but it might not be something that's attainable because it's like private.
Yeah, because those Carter cases really impact our bottom line. And we, you know, as a district, we want those kids and we want to create those dyslexia programs and special ed programs that serve those students. And if we knew how many students we were losing to Carter cases, go to these private schools.
Yeah, my bad.
I just think it would be valuable to know how many students our district is losing to private schools specifically because of special ed cases. And I know that this council district, city council district, has one of the greatest numbers of Carter cases in the city. So if it were possible to get that data broken out.
I could definitely look into that.
Yeah, thank
you. Yeah.
Vanessa? Donalda?
I have two questions. First, thanks so much for being here and for presenting this awesome deck. One is just a request. One of my questions is a request to see
information, or like the articulation data between 8th grade and 9th grade District 15 schools. I think that families in our district would really love to have a set of tremendously viable options outside the 2 schools that are within our current superintendency. And I know our Brooklyn North colleagues do a lot of work to advertise schools that are local here in District 15. But if we could have a pre-K to 12th grade pathway for children to be able to attend in their home district, that would be really wonderful. And so I'm wondering how many kids leave the district for high school, and which districts, where do they go? And I understand that that's a larger question, and maybe you can get that information later. Thank you, Tori. And then, did you want to say something?
No, I'm just saying we definitely have that, so we could definitely get you that.
Thank you so much. We have a high school resolution on the table for sustaining status quo high school admissions, and I think that, you know, just developing a larger vision around it would be helpful. The last thing would be, what steps would you recommend that we take to remedy the 115 seat deficit that we have in elementary school for District 75? Like currently, our district has no District 75 inclusion programs in elementary schools at all. And I'm wondering, at what level does the DOE operate to make it so that children in District 75 have access to their neighborhood schools? Thank you.
Please, yeah, there you go. Okay. Thank you, Donalda. Yes, so we can certainly get the 8th to 9th grade articulation data. And then on District 75, you know, it's a conversation where we will have more information throughout this school year as students go through the referrals process, as we have a better understanding of the true need. So this is one moment in time where we saw there was a deficit. Last year, I think that we also saw a deficit in elementary school District 75 and District 15, but actually when we looked at data for the greatest travel needs, it was elsewhere in Brooklyn. So we were able to meet that need, and we think serve students who were having to travel a long distance to their program by opening new programs in other districts. So we did it in District 15. I think there's a lot of great work happening at 958. I think we have potentially other opportunities to think about how we can increase programming either through inclusion programs or through new programs. It's something we assess a little later in the school year, though, as I mentioned, just once we have some better data from the District 75 office. But our options here really are open a new program by co-locating a District 75 program in a school, thinking about inclusion program needs, which usually requires, you know, maybe some office space, and then those students are just part of that school's student body, or thinking about other specialized programs like ASD programs as well.
Thank you so much, Tori. Those are 3 great options.
Thank you. I'm going to cede my time to the chair. Hans.
Oh, no comments.
Dudley. And Jonathan.
Just one comment, and maybe it's more granular, but I think it may point to some of the work your office can do. I did a tour of a couple schools last week that are co-located with Success Academy, and one thing in particular was a bit disturbing to me, in that the District 75 school 368, the principal was talking about agreements that had been made with the previous administration, with Success Academy, that then turned over, and they had promised them some space in the basement for some of their related services. And there were 3 great spaces where there could be offices for occupational therapists, therapy, and other. And Success Academy decided they were going to give them one of those 3 rooms. They decided not to give it to them, and it's just being used for storage. So a space that could be used to support the needs of the students in the district is instead being used for storage of random supplies for the charter school. And so I know that the building utilization plan exists in the building. There are also elementary age kids who are, only in 3 classrooms on the same floor as middle and high school students, and which is also another concern to think about. So I just want to know what your office can do to continually assess these plans to make sure that spaces are being utilized in the best interest of the students in our district.
And what building was this?
This was the building on Baltic Street where 497.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, we hear the kind of concerns around when instances like this occur and agree that it's really challenging. Like I mentioned, we don't have a quick fix to say, okay, great, we're gonna update that building utilization plan, give those 2 or 3 rooms, reallocate them. What we can do is we can offer support through, the building council, through campus governance. We have folks at the DOE who are able to help mediate those types of conversations. We also work really closely with the Office of Space Planning, and in Brooklyn, that's Charles Fisher, who can help, really understand what's going on in a building, what rooms are needed by different schools. Schools are entitled to storage space. They're entitled to admin space. They're entitled to different things based on the projected enrollment that we include in the BUPS. So I think as you hear these concerns, I know this is a building that has been elevated for us before. Please, either through the council or feel free to reach out to us directly to flag them for us, and we will certainly look into the numbers and into the BUP specifically for that building.
We have a couple of questions.
Sure, and also Superintendent Alvarez, I wanted you to also add, feel free to also add.
Well, yeah, we've been working on thinking about those, we've been working on thinking about those D75 spaces. So in some of the utilization that's going on across the district, we've already been in conversations about how do we add more seats. But just to get to the analysis point, we already have several programs in the district. We want to continue to expand them. So for example, here we have an Ames program. We also have the NEST. We have them across our district. We've been adding more programs. Our inclusive school at 958 and continue to look at expanding those particular programs, because we do believe that our D75 students should be staying within our district and even if possible within their neighborhoods. And so I've been working diligently to push towards making sure that we have those particular seats available. And to the question that you have brought up earlier about the middle school in terms of the demand and spaces, we've been thinking about some really unique situations that we could possibly bring up so that we can actually add more of those seats available so our middle school kids can continue to go to those particular schools that are high demand, while also still servicing the kids that were in that building in another space that seems more fit for them, but also taking into consideration class size reduction over time. So we are working on some of those things. We haven't finalized anything yet, which is why we're still in the process, because we're waiting for some central offices to give us some answers about certain numbers as it relates to, for example, early childhood or K-5 articulation in terms of where we are with that. In terms of the 3 schools that we talked about earlier, 295, 118, and 124, 124 does have an increase of enrollment as of right now. 118 has a slight reduction. It's not by much, but to your point earlier about the class sizes, because those spaces are limited in terms of how many classes, it makes sense that it actually works out to address class size. And in fact, they're part of that 49% that I talked about earlier of being already ready for a class size reduction, even though we're not there yet, but already anticipating. And then 295 has a large reduction of students, and we're thinking about what can we do to support that particular school. We've been in constant communication with their SLT and trying to figure out other things to support the school, because it is an art school. So when funding gets reduced, certain positions get reduced, and oftentimes they're the cluster positions that provide the prep periods for students, and it's usually the arts, right? Because we have to fund the classrooms itself. So we are working on figuring out to remedy those particular situations, and we're looking to continue to expand on our D75 programming. We've been in partnership with Lassant Kettler, who is the superintendent of D75. We've been talking about 418, for example, the Brooklyn Children's School, and figuring out how can we expand their program as well so that they have larger space to be able to not only accommodate for class size, but also for more students to be able to service in an inclusive setting. We continue to work on expanding 958, and in fact, this year the enrollment has gone up drastically because of the efforts that we've put into 958, but also the community seeing how impactful it's being for their children. And then we're also considering other things to ensure that we have equity of services across all aspects of our district. So like Red Hook here, we're at PS 15, they have several special ed inclusive programs to support students to transition, because that's our goal. And so 958, 15, and several other schools have been models for this. And to Denal's point, we want to continue to keep advocating for that, because that's what we see is the need in our district.
And then the questions that we have online, I think there's one that's sort of echoing Jonathan's, what Jonathan brought up. Why are charter schools in the driver's seat, completely to the detriment of our public schools? And then the other question is, this was the same conversation we had last year. Tori stated that because enrollment for general ed and D75 ASD Central do not run on the same timeline, it presents an issue. We requested for the conversations to be centered around timelines matching to determine the true need of the district.
I'm just going to jump in on
Yeah,
that one
of
because I
course.
just had a conversation with Christina Foti. Those of you who know, she's running special education, and we've been working with her, with Sean Rux, who is now part of essentially district planning and thinking about how can we advance, because it has to do also with budgeting, how programs are budgeted for. Because if you would imagine a Horizon program, NEST program, there are additional funding that comes with that there's additional cost to fund the particular programs because of the additional services that are needed that would normally happen at D75. When they're combined, they share services. When you're putting them in a school, it may be additional cost. So these programs take its time to get through. And what we've been working with Christina Foti's office is moving up the timeline so that we can actually determine way in advance how to actually fund and put these programs in our schools, so that we don't have to wait until after the fact to determine that we're going to put the program in our schools. And so that's actually literally last week we were having a conversation about working on that. And I know her office, as well as Sean Ruck's office, is working on determining how do we move forward with that. For example, thinking about the program that we're adding in our middle school that's coming online in 24-25 school year. That's going to be housed at the old 516 campus until they move to their Fort Hamilton location in 2026-27. We've been already trying to make sure that that funding is already allocated so that that program could exist immediately at the start, as opposed to starting at a later time.
And just one thing. And I also really appreciate this question and comment about the timing, and this is an annual presentation. So I remember Nancy last year asking about residents, like it's something we do every year. But I think our goal is to be an office that is in communication with families, with the council, with the public, and with the community, so that we're not just coming in October, November every year. You hear us say there's a need, and maybe we'll find out more about that need later, and then you don't see us again. So I'm hoping that, this is one of many times that we can be out at meetings, hearing from you all, and also sharing updates where we have them, if you'll have us.
Yes, thank you. Yes. All right, thank you all so much. Thank you for coming, and yes, we want you back soon.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. And with that, I now turn it over to Superintendent Alvarez.
You have the PowerPoint? Yeah, okay. All right, so the CEC.
Are you on the Zoom?
Uh,
Here, if you I'll just turn it.
Okay, okay, great. Everyone's, all right, I'll talk this way. Yeah, I'll talk this way. So the CEC asked me to shorten a little bit of the superintendent's report so that we can go through the enrollment data. And so I'm going to share some pieces. And if we can go to the next 2 slides. As always, I just want to celebrate and honor what's been celebrated in the month of October. So those of you who celebrate Halloween, Indigenous Peoples Day, Happy Italian American Heritage Month as well. Hope you enjoyed the holiday or will enjoy the holiday coming soon. And just some highlights of this past month in terms of Hispanic Heritage Month. I'm not going to go into every slide, talk about every slide, but just want to give you an idea of what we've been doing across our district. And so if you go to the next slide, you can see several schools, PS1 and MS 839 on the next slide. There you go. Doing different types of celebration that honor Hispanic Heritage Month. Those of you who know Hispanic Heritage Month goes between September and October, so it's like a month within 2 months. Nonetheless, next slide. You have PS24 Middle School 136 celebrating. And I just want to give a shout out to Mr. Nunez from PS24, who actually created an interactive world map that you can see above that students were able to interact with at PS24. We were excited about that. Next slide. Some more celebrations. Brooklyn High School of the Arts did a week's worth of celebrations, as well as MS 839, where they did several celebrations across different nations and different activities that they had for different grades. So we were excited about that. Next slide. PS 131 also doing some celebration in their particular community. As you can see, the students celebrating with different festivities around this work. If we go to the next slide. I just want to talk about this. Many of you know that I was supposed to be going with Janice Ross, Superintendent Janice Ross and Superintendent Hua to China for the Chinese Educational Leadership Study and Exchange. Superintendents did not go, but we did send our principals, and this picture was taken 2 days ago with the counterparts in China around supporting dual language programs and how we expand that particular work. So we're excited about that. Shout out to Principal Christina Gonzalez, who's holding it on the left, and on the right, Ruth Rodriguez from 896 holding it on the right. And so all the other principals here, you have Brooklyn Latin High School that's here, you got Brooklyn Tech High School here, and several other high schools that were involved in this process. And so on the next slide, you're seeing Principals Christina Gonzalez and Ruth Rodriguez from our district speaking at the forum. This one was taken in Shanghai. They're headed actually to Beijing today or tomorrow or sometime soon to present at the larger forum in Beijing. And you see TJ, we call her TJ. TJ's on our team representing the district office. And this was advertised there in China. You want to give them a shout out. We wanted to look a little bit at the state exams. And while I know District 15 is not really keen on state exams, we still have to talk about this because this is how we're measured. And so I just want to go to the next, there you go. So I just wanted to talk about the ELA and math exam opt-out rate. That in the 2023 year, from 2022 to 23, we had a increase in students taking the assessment and a decrease in the opt-out. And why that's significant is because we're now able to see more of where students actually are and better plan and prepare to support students going forward, both in ELA and math. I just wanted to point out one thing as well. When it comes to the English language learners, when you look at 2022, where there was 688 students opted out, that turned out to be 17.8%. If you look at this year, it's only 332, which is still a total of 18.2%. So it looks like there was an increase in the number of opt-outs, but it's not an increase. It's just that we have an increase of the number of L students in our district. And as I stated before, District 15 services the largest number of English language learners in Brooklyn North, right? So now next slide. What does this mean? Where's the growth? Where is their growth? And what are our areas of improvement? So I want to caveat this by saying, even though you see an increase in ELA of 4.4% and an increase in math by 10.5%, this is still a comparison of apples to oranges. The last year's state exam was the CCLS exam, Common Core Learning Standards. This year's previous exam was the New Generation Learning Standards. So while they are similar in much of what was covered, the approach in terms of what students were expected to do is slightly different. So this is still comparing apples to oranges. I want to caveat that. However, with it being compared to apples and oranges, and this seems to be our baseline where we're starting off, on the next slide, I want to show you where we are as a district. As in ELA, District 15 is at 64.3%, which is 12.6% above the city's average, which is 51.7, and D15 is up 4.4% since. If you look at the colors here, the work that we still have to do is around our English language learners. Again, the largest number of students in the Brooklyn North, we have them. We were at a minus 2.7%. So there's a lot of work to do with L's, and that's kind of a lot of the work that we're doing across our district using DataWise and the MTSS process combined to support that particular work in ELA. However, with that being said, we still had the increases are highest among our ever L's, which are students who were L's, students with disabilities, and our Hispanic student group had large increases. Current L's are the only group, as I said to you, that are still struggling, and that's something that we're working on. When you go to the next slide, there's our math results. We're at a proficiency rate of 65%. That's a 15.1 above the city's rate, which is 49.9. District 15 is up by 10.5% since last year. And if you look, all of our categories on the left have gone up. Again, still comparing apples to oranges, but starting to see that we're starting to slowly close the achievement gap. It's not fast enough. I would love for it to be a lot faster, but we're doing something that's starting to think about how we're addressing our marginalized populations in our district. And I believe it's the work that we're doing with school leaders to focus on how they're evaluated, which is for me, domains 2 and 5, individualized instructional supports, as well as thinking about equity, democracy, and diversity, right? And from my perspective, democracy is, the democracy part is that student agency, student voice and choice and agency, that diversity has to do with that inclusive classroom, and giving opportunities for other students to participate in all aspects of the work and not just where we think their strengths are, but tapping into their high strengths and moving that forward. And then that equity, how are we addressing the marginalized students in those classes? Because as a district, we historically do well, but where we don't do well are our marginalized groups. And because they seem to be smaller populations, we don't pay attention to them as much. Last year was a heavy emphasis on focusing on those groups. This year is an even more emphasis on focusing on those groups, and school leaders, having started our PPO process, which is their evaluation process, many of the school leaders are definitely knowing every individual student, case studies, thinking about those individual students and how we're supporting them, not just academically, but holistically, and that's what we're trying to focus on. Next slide. District partnership updates. I'm just going to go to the next slide. We've been working with the Brooklyn Nets last year. We've expanded this for the Brooklyn Nets to continue. They've working with 15 of our schools this particular year. I'm expecting to have the remaining schools towards the end of the year. And just so that you know, that we know, we've also offered this to all the districts across New York City for elementary and middle school. So every district in our borough is going to participate in this and are participating. District 20 was the first group this year, 15 is next, and I think District 23 is right after, and so on and so forth. By the end of December, districts 23 and 32 will have serviced all of their schools with the Brooklyn Nets. And just so that you know, they're getting basketballs at their schools, they're getting clinics, they're getting shirts, and they're also, schools are getting tickets to be able to send students to be able to see the Brooklyn Nets. So that's a great partnership. Next slide. We have our Urban Debate League across our district. Our middle school tournaments are going to be December 20th and April 18th. We invite all CEC members to participate if they can. We'll send the details of the locations for that. And elementary schools will be January 19th and May 2nd. The schools and the faculty and the staff are going through professional learning around public speaking, active listening. I'm not going to read everything there, but you could see that our push is for this. And I want to thank several of our parents who are sitting in the audience now. I know Janet Marte is on, and she's one of those parents who's been advocating for our special needs students to participate in these debates equally as much as any other student. And so we've added that this year, as well as our dual language, so that kids can actually compete in their native languages as well. So we're excited about that. The next two slides. Just the mayoral town hall happened at MS 88, so I want to thank Principal Mitchell for hosting. There were about 200 people who attended. We added the YouTube, for those of you who weren't able to attend, the YouTube link so that you could see how that event went. The major issues that were raised were e-bikes, infrastructure and flooding, education when it comes to funding and other things, budgetary concerns with city and schools, and then the services for migrants and the influx of migrants in our city. And these are the main topics that were kind of discussed. But you could see for yourself through the YouTube video. Next slide. Our district middle school fair is being hosted on October 26th. This is separate from the schools doing their individual open houses. We're doing one as a district as a whole. We have included 2 other schools in our district, Park Slope Collegiate, as well as we didn't, my correction. So the link is here because they're hosting theirs. The link is here. Please note that this is being translated in the languages that are necessary. The PowerPoints are also being translated so that families have access to the information in their native languages, and it will be given at the same time as the English is given, as I've always promised. Next slide. Family engagement upcoming. There's a family, these are all the workshops that are happening with our family engagement for the next couple of months. Feel free to register. And if you have any questions, Christine Farrell, who's our family leadership coordinator, or Brenda Diaz, who is our family support coordinator, you can gather more information for that. And then next slide, it's just Q&A.
Great. I'm going to open it up to our families on the Zoom. If anybody has a question or comment, you can put that, either raise your hand or put your comment or question in the chat. I'd also like to ask our translators, do you have anyone that has questions?
I didn't hear any questions on the Spanish line.
Thank you.
No question in Bangla line.
And no questions for Mandarin line.
Thank you. Okay. I'm going to open it up to our audience. If anyone has questions or comments. All right. Now our CEC members, Nancy. Oh, excuse me. Yes.
Yeah, Shanice. And then all these PowerPoint slides will always be posted on the CEC's website, and they're also translated in the native languages for the families, so if they have access at any time. The slide with the middle school, so it'd be the next, keep going. Oh, the opposite way, the opposite way. There you go.
All right, I'm going to open up questions to the CEC members. Nancy?
Thank you so much.
Antonia?
Yeah, I do have a question. So
Do you mind speaking into the?
So, you said that comparing last year's exam results to this year's was apples and oranges because there were 2 different tests.
Yes.
What do you think the key differences between those 2 exams are? Can you kind of?
Yeah, sure. I think that the NGLS standards really goes more into of the conceptual understanding, so that students are not just knowing how to compute, but really understand the process of computing and why they're computing. And that's just one example, right? And so it's really thinking about how they're methodically thinking through processes as opposed to just getting a right answer. So the idea of, for example, practicing something like knowing your times tables, while you need it for the fluency aspect of an exam, you still need that conceptual understanding behind the why is 8 times 8 64, and what's the process that you go through that. It's slightly different. I think that what we're doing as a district to address that, we're working on the phase 2 of the ELA in terms of how we're going to roll out curricula. And the expectation is that through January through June, we're focusing on supporting students, supporting parents, and supporting staff. We already started focusing on supporting the administration as we speak around the reading curricula. And then we're moving many of our schools to either Eureka Square Math or to illustrative math, because those two programs focus more on the discovery and the how, and the why behind the how, right? And so we're focusing on a lot of that work as we move forward, and we're already starting to have our schools start integrating that work in.
Vanessa? Thank you. Donalda?
Yes, thanks. Would you please email your deck?
The deck?
Can you ask a question?
Shanice, can you email the deck to the CEC?
Oh, sure, and I'll just come over.
Yeah.
My second question is, could you please continue to keep us updated
Yeah.
about the inclusion program progress with Christina Foti?
Yeah, sure.
Especially since we have a 115 seat deficit for students in District 75 programs.
Absolutely. So Nicole, if you can notate that for me, so that when we go back, we could just follow up with that office and see what's going on with that.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. I'll cede my time. Hans? Okay. Danny? Jonathan?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Oh. I don't even.
Executive Director, Students Support Services and Operations, thank you for being here. And now I turn it over to Yuet Chu. Thank you so much.
So I'm going to be a disembodied voice for a minute because I'm not going to present. Shanice has my deck. There's lots of goodies in there for you guys as always. The most important, 3 important things. One is Saturday at Westinghouse is our Brooklyn North High School's fair. Hi, Zoom people. I feel like you all need to get up and stretch. You should like get up and like sit around. You've been sitting for a long time. Four things. So Saturday, Westinghouse, 10 to 3. 47 Brooklyn North High Schools will all be present, along with my friend Donovan Swanson from the Brooklyn Borough President's Office. He was hiding in the back, but I just outed him. Come on by, we'll be there all day. All of our schools are there. We'll have kids, we'll have snacks. Come on by and check us out, especially if you're an 8th grade family, and even if you're not, plan for your future. I am ceding my time because, as I promised, I'm going to continue bringing you guys Brooklyn North High School principals. And tonight, I brought 2 principals, and I'm going to start with Cobble Hill because they have the home court advantage. Principal Liz Rodriguez and Dean Margot Gray are both District 15 residents. Come on up, girls.
You can sit here.
You can sit, you can stand, you can dance, you can do your Liz thing. Come on. She always wants to dance. So should I sit back?
Yeah.
How are you all?
Thank you
for
good.
inviting us. Thank you for having us.
Ms. Chu had she says attached to hers. Do you have the presentation in attached?
Yes, she's slide 10, there's the link.
Hi, once again, good afternoon, good evening. I am Acting Principal Rodriguez. I'm coming from Cobble Hill High School. We're actually located a block away up on Baltic Street between Smith and Hoyt. And you could always come over. We have our building is adjacent to Burham Hill Park. We actually have the schoolyard that's adjacent that we open up after our school hours. And so I'm waiting for my slides to come up. And so who are we as a building? I want to start. So what we're considered is a mid-sized school. We do have open houses almost every week. except for this Saturday, because this Saturday we will be participating in the Brooklyn North High School Fair over at Westinghouse this weekend. But we do have every week on Wednesdays from 5 to 6:30, 5 to 7 p.m., either open houses. The dates are listed there. This in particular is the open houses for students with special needs. Currently at Cobble Hill, we have a D75 program, an ASD Nest, and an ASD Horizon program for students. We actually I was trying to divide my time, but I had someone else could step in for the ASD Horizon orientation today. So, fair today. Last week we did ASD Nest. And our school is highlighted by two programs that we offer at our school. One is the PLTW Project Lead the Way, the acronym biomedical program, which is an intensive program where students from the first year in high school actively engage in biomedical sciences, which is for any student interested in enrolling or beyond, furthering their career, their high school career and graduating and going into career in any of the sciences, medical, technicians, nursing, also as well as research. So for instance, in 1 year, our students during COVID were trying to come up with the cure for COVID. And then now they're trying to find a cure for flu, because it seems that flu is now rampant and nowadays, at least this season so far. Our students are actively engaging in research, actively engaging in hands-on participation in labs. They also, they do virtual reality. They use the same devices that our students, that in the hospitals utilize in regards to practicing their craft in dissections as well as operations. And with that program, we're looking to expand it to, we're in the talks with one of our nearby colleges to possibly within the next few years offering a fifth-year program where students will be leaving with an associate's degree in nursing. We also have a law program. Our students are participant in the mock trial moot court. This program is for any student that is interested in pursuing any field of law, including legal studies, including if you want to be in law enforcement or any other field of law. Our students participate in mock trial moot courts. We have a partnership and mentorship program with the Brooklyn DA's office and the Justice Resource Center, as well as Red Hook Youth Court as well. So our students get internships there. Both in biomedical program, we have a mentorship program called HOSA, and HOSA is a national organization that supports students, especially students of color and female students who that are pursuing careers within the medical field. They receive mentorship. They go to conferences every year, at least twice a year, and where they get to explore their all the different fields of science they get into. And so with that, this intensive program is offered to all of our students every year from year one, and they pursue this and take the courses till the end, until they graduate. We have the law program is also affiliated with Syracuse University, and so our students in the 10th grade also take SUPA forensic science classes, which is offered to both the law students and the biomedical students. It's a field, there's a first year this year, it's a dual enrollment program. So our students actually get college credit from Syracuse University for forensic science. And that's a field that both departments get to participate in. Then also with Syracuse University, our students take a cybersecurity course in their senior year, and they earn dual credit as well through Syracuse University for the cybersecurity class. We also offer College Now classes. We have at least 8 advanced placement courses, and where students take the courses and then take the AP exams in May. So we offer AP Statistics, AP Language, AP Literature, AP US History, AP Government, AP Biology. And with that, can we advance the slides? I just realized it's on the same slide. I don't know if we have the other slides. Okay. Is it a way I can do it, or? No. Okay, all right. So you can go, I guess, go to the second slide. So who are we? We're mid-sized school, we're college prep. What does that mean? We also offer our students the opportunity to actually have a real high school experience while they're also exploring college. our students are participants in the AVID program. AVID is an acronym for Advancement via Individual Determination. And what does that look like? We want to ensure that our students are not only graduate from high school, but they're prepared for real life and going on to college. Many students do not enter college, but then they don't have the skills to sustain the rigor and the work of college level. So with AVID, we started the program for those midline students who maybe had an 80, to make sure they excelled, because we already offer supports for our students that are, let's say, coming in with lower averages, and then students that are excelling get the advanced placement on honors courses. We wanted to ensure that our midline students also had the opportunity. But what we found was that these students were outperforming our honor students. So now we offer AVID to every student every year and every semester. With that, we use the curriculum WICR, which is writing, inquiry, collaboration, organization, and reading, which builds the skills for students to not only organize a binder, we give them binders as if they've never been a student before, and we teach them how to organize the binders, we give them the paper, the organizers, and we teach them Cornell notes and teach them how to refer those notes when they're studying, and to organize their thoughts so they become active participants in their own learning, so they're not actually just sitting behind the desk, but being dictated by a teacher in the front of the classroom. We really push for our students to be active thinkers and active learners, and with the inquiry process, the students get to delve into topics that they find interesting within their own classes, and that's a big push. So my mission and vision for the school, our vision is that here at Cobble Hill, we are a caring learning community. We focus on developing engaged, productive global citizens. So we advocate for a commitment to student voice, a mutual respect for the teaching and learning process, and pride in work and achievement. We want our students to excel, we want them to do well, and we want them to have that passion to continue learning and to do as well as possible. So our core values is respect, responsibility, and caring for everyone. And since we are a mid-sized school, we know every student by name. We see you in the morning. We know when you're having an off day. We know when you need something to eat. We know when we need to counsel you before you get up to class. And it creates a community where we all support each other. And this is just a picture of, we went to the Brent's Cancer Walk last Sunday. We have a beautiful building. And it's actually, we're doing a celebration in June, because in June we celebrate our 100th year. And so we have pictures around our building when there was horse-drawn carriages parked outside our school. The school was built as an elementary school, so our hallways are a little narrower, or even our water fountains are still a little lower. So our students have to also, when they're walking up the stairs, make sure they don't hit their heads on the top stairs, which sometimes happen. We're centrally located downtown Brooklyn on like 4 blocks off of Atlantic Avenue. And it's the F&G train on Bergen Street, or the 2 or 3 on Hoyt and Skimmerhorn. But if our students take the back of the train, if they're coming from other parts of Brooklyn, like Bed-Stuy, Fort Greene, if they take the back of the train, the front of the train, they'll actually be right on the corner of our school on Warren Street. Okay. Listen, my students were being creative, I see. So students at Cobble Hill, we have about 350 students. And this is a picture of our auditorium, which was not in use for many, many years. And now it's open, beautiful. We have our graduations there, and we love utilizing it. And this is just a picture of our students during the first few days of school, making sure that they're acclimated back to our building, supporting them socially, emotionally, getting them ready for the rigor of work. And part of that process is making sure our students are comfortable with each other after a summer off. So this is what you're seeing right now. So we had, as of June, 87% graduation rate. After recalculating that, we should have at least a 92% graduation rate this year. 85% of our graduates graduated with at least 1 college credit. Most of our students graduate with at least 15 college credits under their belt. 100% of our students graduate and go to college or trade school or more. When I say more, they go to both. Our students have a co-op program, and so they go to that and get a trade and still go to college to explore more. And that's what we want our students to be ready, be prepared to compete, and be able to not only get a career, but also want to pursue and continue their studies. We have 5 to 6 dual enrollment program within that a student has an opportunity to take every semester, which is through College Now, which is New York City Tech, We have the super classes, which they earn credits for. We have Outlier, which is an online program affiliated with University of Pittsburgh. So we have students sitting in classes that are asynchronous and being taught by professors from an array of different colleges. And then we also have the Google certification courses that our students will be taking next semester. And with all that mouthful, we also offer internships to ensure that students get to explore and be participant in internships to get a clear idea, is this really what I want to do? Sometimes we instill our students, you have to be a lawyer, and then when they go in there and go into a courtroom, they're like, nah, I don't want to do this, I want to do something else. So we want to make sure that they get a full opportunity to explore their careers, but then also to gain that experience of being an intern or getting jobs. So we also have the BLE opportunities and also within our building. So we do have co-op students in our building as well, so they can learn the experience of having the responsibility of having a job and the task behind it. Next slide. And these are our measures of success. How do we achieve that? Once again, Avid framework. We have a designated college advisor. We have classrooms of tomorrow. So we use technology. We use the soft chairs. We know that during the pandemic, our students, our children were laying on the floor, laying on the bed, halfway up, legs up in the air, half asleep. They were very creative in how they learned. We want to ensure that students had that opportunity. So we have soft furniture in some classrooms. We have the tables that they can write on. We have two or three mobile smartboards in our classrooms, some of our classrooms, so that while I'm learning at my rate, using one mobile station, maybe another student that's excelling and doing much better is already advanced, is using another mobile station to do that, so that we meet the students where they are to bring them where we need them to be competitive. And we look at data to ensure that our students are being taught the way they need to learn, not how. It's not a one size fit all, and it's not based on how a teacher teaches. The teachers teach based on how the students need to learn. And so these are some of the partnerships we have with Maimonides, the JRC, Brooklyn DA's office. We have some internships with them. We're exploring more opportunities because every opportunity that students get to be outside of the building, learning is an experience that they will take away and live and have that experience within them even when they move off from Cobble Hill. Next slide, please. Where our students get accepted. What's the beautiful thing is when you're a student in a small pond with all the same opportunities as everyone else, there's less competition. Our students get into Macaulay's honors. They get into all the SUNY and CUNY schools. They go on and go. We have students in Tuskegee, we have students in Cornell, we have students at UCLA, we have students at Berkeley, Adelphi, Fordham. Wherever it is they want to go, we support them and ensure that they get there. I was the first person in my family to go to college. I didn't have the experience of having someone else support me through that process. So we have college now and college summit. So we have peer leaders that go off to colleges and get trained through peer leaders. And this year they went to Oneonta. They were trained through the whole process, the college essay, financial aid, how to apply to with the Common App. And they come back and they support their peers in ensuring that there is no child left behind because the parents or the family don't have the experience. We want to be equitable with everything we do and want to meet students where they're at to ensure that they are as successful as anyone else in their classroom, in the building. So these are just an example for some of our students. And we spoke about, I think, the JRC, which is our code is 91B. Introduction to Law. These are the courses, the year sequence in each course as they move on. Introduction to Law, Criminology, Criminal Justice, Constitutional Law, and Cybersecurity. And then the PLTW, Project Lead the Way program, which is K91A, which is Principles of Biomedical Science, Human Body Systems, Medical Interventions, and Biomedical Innovation. And they use up-to-date technology that you have to see them doing their operations with the Z-Space goggles, and they're actually doing it and they're in it. So it's a beautiful thing to have them live those experiences. And one of the big things that we pride ourselves in also is that we have a lot of trips. A lot of our learning happens outside the classroom. And we sustain that. We ensure that none of our students don't get to go on a trip we go to Virginia, we go to Washington, DC, we go to the HBCUs. And we make sure that all students get to go, even if they cannot pay. So we cover the cost for all trips. Next slide. And this, I already mentioned all the AP and dual enrollment classes. We already spoke about that. AP Statistics, all that, the dual enrollment classes, the Google certifications, the cybersecurity, forensic science, science research. These are all of our dual enrollment. And we have an extracurricular, robust after-school program. We believe that students should be students, they should be happy, they should be students and teenagers as long as possible. You even see in our lunchtime, our students are outside playing in the schoolyard, playing football, playing basketball. They're just having a good time. And that's what our students deserve. And that's what we bring to the table when your child comes to us. So, thank you so much.
Thank you for
Thank
being
you.
here.
Thank you. I'm not gonna put the video on, so. And I'm going to present my colleague, Principal Watt. She's coming from CASA, and I'll pass up my things later, but she's a principal over at CASA, which is in the John Jay Building. So I want to welcome her to come and present as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And in the flyer, there's actually my email address and the website for our school. Anytime you want to come visit, our building is open to everyone. So I'm going to that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone.
Hi, Valerie. I know it's late. I know everyone is feeling tired, but I will be quick. My name is Valerie Walk. I am the IA principal for Cyber Arts Studio Academy located in Park Slope Building. We are located in the John Jay Building. So I am here to give you a little information about my school. So we are a small school located in John Jay Building. We have approximately 330 students. Over 160 students are ENL kids, which we got an influx in our first year. We offer a variety of digital arts program for our students, starting from the 9th grade, ending in the 12th grade. All right, so for our academic courses, we offer graphic design, we offer intro to filmmaking, and our digital media courses where students from grades 9 through 12 are immersed in those programs in our media technology program. We offer AP courses in art and design, AP human geography, AP digital arts, AP English language and literature. We also offer AP psychology, as well as we offer an array of extracurriculum activities for our students. So our students are engaged in media club, film club, ping pong club, video game club, jewelry making. Our students are engaged in also after school tutoring. We have a robust ENL tutoring program for our beginning L students so that we can get them immersed in learning the language. So our students every week in their media class, if you go back to the previous slide, they do a weekly newscast. So this is an example, I'm going to share it with you, of our weekly news media class where they share an overview of what's happening in our school for the week. So can you play? Yes. So. Okay. So so every week, our kids from grades 9 through 12, each group of students, they present a summary of what's happening in their grade for the school, and we take 7th period every week to share it with the entire school community. So I was going to show you an example of what that looked like. All right. So who are we? Next slide. We are amazing. We're confident. We're creative. We're scholars. So in all classrooms you will visit, you see kids are doing. We want to ensure that our students are not passive learners. So every activity within the 45 minutes, students are engaged in doing something. They are not just sitting and reading and writing, but there is something that they have to create and make, whether it's through film or it's an activity they're engaged in. So we want to make sure that our students are always involved in that process. And we have a very diverse population of students. So all our students are friendly, they're kind. We have a very low incident rate. All our students get along. So this is an overview, cyber arts, what it is. Cyber arts refers to the class of art produced with the help of computer software and hardware, often with an interactive or multimedia aspect. So these are the offering we provide for our students. Our mission statement, CASA will provide an equitable, culturally supportive learning environment where students will grow creatively through collaboration. So these areas that I'm describing are what you will actually see in the classrooms when you visit. So kids are collaborating, they're communicating, and they are engaged in critical thinking skills. Next slide. Our vision at CASA is to empower students with the skill sets to create, collaborate, and engage. And because we are developing our students to do this, all our teachers are aware of this vision and they incorporate them in their daily lessons. And this is just giving an overview of all our offerings. So I didn't get to put this on the slide because I learned about this yesterday. So we do offer dual credit courses to our students. All our 11th and 12th grade students are offered dual credit courses through St. Francis College in 2 English courses as well as a math course. So our students leave high school. We're building our dual credit program. So for this school year, it was first introduced and our students have the opportunity to leave high school with a minimum of 4 college credits. And in the future, we plan to increase this offering to our students as well as our AP offerings. All right, so that is pretty much it. If you open up the brochure I give you, each month our students in their digital arts class, they create what is called our newsletter. It's called the CASA Chronicle. So if you scan it, you're able to see monthly what's going on in our school community. And this is totally student-led and supervised by teachers on each grade level. So we have September issue available and we have October issue available in multiple languages. So that is my presentation and CASA. We have open house on October 25th, which is tomorrow, and we have another open house on November 9th, and we will also be at the Brooklyn North High School Fair on Saturday. So encourage your family, friends, and your schools to come visit us. Okay?
Thank you so much. Thank you for coming. Thank you so much. It's wonderful. Wow. Thank you. It's wonderful to learn about the high schools in our districts and in our space. Mr. Williams? Oh, wonderful. Okay, we don't have much time left. We have about 10 minutes. Is that okay? Okay, Mr. Williams, thank you so much. He's from the Office of Language Access. Well, thank you so much for being here. You can take a seat at either one of these.
Thank you for having me. One second. Okay. Good evening, everyone. How you doing? My name is Robert Williams, and I am the point person for all parent engagement at the Office of Language Access. And I'm going to show a quick, short PowerPoint.
Oh, thank you.
So on the agenda, we have 6 bullets. We'll talk about the public schools background, our commitment to parents' preferred language, the schools.nyc.gov hello page, raising awareness, questions and answers, and the school translation and interpretation feedback. So a little brief background of the NYC public schools. There's over 1 million students and over 1,600 plus schools and over 180 languages that are spoken. Approximately 40% of NYC public schools households speak a language other than English at home. And the non-most common languages other than English that are represented by parents are Arabic, Bangla, Chinese, French, Haitian Creole, Korean, Russian, Spanish, and Urdu. So our commitment to parents' preferred language. We have interpretations for all meetings and conversations, translation of non-student specific critical communications into the NYC public schools in the non-most common languages other than English. And some examples of the non-student critical communications include parent newsletter, event flyers, translation of student specific critical communications into parents' preferred language upon request. And some examples of the student critical communications include IEPs, which is individualized education programs, and Section 504 plans, which is a medical accommodation. Now we're going to talk about the schools.nyc.gov hello page. So to navigate through the page, as you will see in the top right corner of the hello page, there's a Google dropdown. Just click the dropdown and pick whatever language that you prefer the page to translate in your language. But please note, translation is not intended to replace human translators and are provided as a service to users of the NYC Public Schools website. Some content such as images, videos, etc., may not accurately be translated due to the limitations of the translation software. Here's a little quick video. I'm not going to play because there's no sound right now. Yeah, I'm going to go to the next one. How to request language services. Families may complete the translation and interpretation service request form to request language services, but I must, reiterate that. First, go to your school personnel, whoever the language access coordinator at the school is. First, go to your school to request interpretation and translation before filling out this form. If you can't find anybody at the school to help you, then your backup would be to fill out this form. And as you can see, the translation and interpretation services request form is available in the non-common languages. And please note, services may vary depending on the student's school. Parents can also call the 718-935-2013 to make a request for language services. Interpretation over the phone is available in over 240 languages. So here's a little snapshot of how the translation and interpretation service request form look. It just asks a few questions and you just fill it out. Like I said before, go to your school first and then come to the schools.nyc.gov hello page to fill out the form. When you fill out the form, your request will be forwarded to your school anyway, because I have to let them know, hey, Mary filled out this form and she's requesting interpretation for the upcoming parent-teacher conference. CC the principal, CC whoever the language access coordinator is, and CC whoever the point person for that school is. It can be myself or two of my other colleagues. And this form is also covered in all the languages as well. So some important translation resources. You can find a few of the translation resources available on the NYC Public Schools public website, including supports for remote learning, health forms, family guide for parents and guardians, disabilities, special education communications, early childhood communications, and enrollment forms. And on the bottom, we have some I-Speak cards and a parent guide to language access that can be printed out and distributed. Here's a little snapshot of the I-Speak card. So how this works is that, as you can see on the bottom, It has a little dotted line. Whatever language you speak, you can just tear out your language, hand it to the staff member at the school, and they have to communicate with you in that language. If you're having difficulties obtaining language services, you can file a complaint. If you click that link, you can file a complaint. You can click the get help. It will guide you to whoever the point person is that can help you with that school. And for sign language interpretation services, please contact your school's parent coordinator or the Office of Sign Language Interpreting Services at oslis@schools.nyc.gov. And also, we would like to hear your feedback. If your school is not communicating with you in your language, please fill out the feedback form, or if you want to shout out a school that's doing real great, we would like to hear that as well. And here's how the feedback form would look. Again, just complete the form. Your inquiry will be addressed accordingly. The form is available in the covered languages. And to contact the Office of Language Access, if you or someone you know needs help receiving information or communicating with a school staff member in a language other than English, please tell your school's principal or parent coordinator, or you can call the NYC Public Schools at 718-935-2013, or you can click on the Contact Us and they'll give you information on who to contact. And this is a snapshot of how the contact form would look. Again, just complete the form, we'll address your inquiry accordingly, and it's covered in the 9 languages. Some raising awareness in our communities. You may have seen some advertisement in the schools, in grocery stores, laundromats, nail, hair salon, barbershops, pharmacies. We also have done direct parent outreach, robocalls, emails, text messages, postcards, and what's not on here is that it was on the side of school buses and in the train stations. And that is it. Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you so much, Mr. Williams. We're not going to be able to do questions tonight. However, do you have a copy of the presentation that you could send to us?
Yes.
That we could share
Yes.
with our parents?
Yes.
Because I think this would be really helpful for a lot of parents, for them to know how to be able to access.
Okay, yeah, I'll share with you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And if we have any questions, please, if anybody here has questions, can we email you? Is that
Yes, you
okay?
can email me at rwilliams32@schools.nyc.gov.
And Vanessa, could you drop that in the chat also?
Repeat it, actually type it right here.
Right, so we're also dropping it in the chat, so if anybody on the Zoom has any questions, please reach out to Mr. Williams. Thank you so much. This is very important. We keep coming across the importance of language access and the challenge of it. Thank you, Mr. Williams. All right, everybody, thank you so much for being here tonight. We have resolutions on the agenda, which we're not going to get to tonight, as we must be out of the building in 2 minutes. Happy to have a special session on Saturday morning, if anybody would like to do that. Otherwise, the resolutions can be on the agenda at the business meeting, and I will be happy to put them at the top of the agenda so that we actually vote on them. All right, thank you everybody for being here. It's 9:28 p.m. and do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? I hear a motion from Vanessa, a second from Jonathan. Thank you so much. This meeting is adjourned at 9:29 p.m. Good night, everybody. Really, you guys don't want to get to 9 a.m. on
Okay, good night.
Good night.
Good night, good night, good night.
Thank you. Interpretation, you're dismissed.